Oi! What's up, gang? Hi. I'm Jason. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to Wednesday. It is Whip Wednesday. You know what I probably didn't do? I probably didn't change that this is episode 5? Is this 5 on Arena Rex? I think it is. Episode 5. Whip in effect. Let's do this. What's happening, gang? Feel like it's telling us that it's too long. There we go. There we go. Greds, what's going on? Kitten Mancy, welcome back. I said the next paint along is going to be in October sometime, right? That's what we're shooting for. Right now, the next paint along that we have scheduled is with the Bushido guys. And they are moving their warehouse in England right now. And so they don't plan, I think from our last correspondence, they said that they didn't plan to have the warehouse set and shipping up and running until the second week of September. So that's 2 weeks from now. So I didn't want to make it, we were trying to do Bushido at the end of September. I don't feel like that's a good thing to do. I feel that's making it way too tight. So we're going to push Bushido out. We're going to introduce another new game at the end of September. So it'll be Wild West Exodus comes up after we get finished with our Arena Rex stuff this next Sunday. Wild West Exodus will be the focus after that. And then after Wild West Exodus, we've got a new game. So we'll throw that in there. I'll update the calendar at the end of this week as soon as I, confirm all of that. And then Bushido will get pushed out into October along with Malifaux. Is our hope, so that October is Bushido and Malifaux. We'll see how that plans out, but yeah. And if for some reason the Bushido paint-along doesn't happen, we will be doing a Malifaux paint-along. So we've got the ability to replace it. The Malifaux one is a little easier because we have all that product easy to get. The Bushido product we have to wait for the manufacturer to send us. So we're juggling balls right there, but either way, we're gonna do it with enough time that everybody has a chance to get the model and all that. So yeah, shooting for October. Might be beginning, might be end. I'll let you know. Keep your ears perked. We'll let you know. Assassin, what's going on, man? Hopefully everybody's day is going well here in the middle of the week. It's really 7. What? It's what? No, it's not. Shush. Shush. Dathar, what's going on? Drago, what's up, girl? JDA, what's up? Welcome back. BVC Gaming, what's happening? Welcome back. Kev Rob, I see you out there. Sub Genius, what's happening? Happen to be stationary to watch for a change? Fantastic. Hopefully that's a good thing. Hopefully you're not like stationary in a bed and like a full body cast. That would be horrible. And I don't even know where I come up with this crap. That's just the way my brain works, I guess. Anthony Lone, what's going on? Chuck Whiffendifferent, what's happening? The Real Ashman, what's going on, man? Thank you again so much for the birthday donation to Jen. We took her out to dinner. Had a wonderful dinner in your name, in your honor. Toasted a whatever pink drink she was drinking, had way too much vodka and pink things in it. And I drank a beer. I had a Scottsdale Blonde. Thank you, my friend. Houdini, what's happening? Richard, what's going on, brother? You guess with Spartan Games, you won't be seeing anything from their Firestorm Armada or Halo Fleet battles. You mean with them closing shop? Hopefully, like we talked about on the Sunday show, hopefully somebody will pick up the IP. From Spartan Games closing. I don't know if I would expect to see Dystopian Wars. It's a cool game, so maybe. The Armada stuff, is it Planetfall and Firestorm? I would hope that somebody picks those up. It's got great models and background and all that, but we'll see. They posted something from the quote-unquote director saying that they had a lot of people interested in the IP. We'll see if any of that, pans out. My business side creeps in there and says I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people from Spartan start another company and take the IP with them. That whole rob Peter to pay Paul thing. They were too in debt, so they just go change their company name with new directors and new investors and start over from scratch. So I wouldn't be surprised if I'd see that. Cool for the games, not real good business, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't put it past people to do that, and that's a shame, but we'll see how it works. Hopefully the models will come back. Subgenius is not in an airport for the first time in a month. Holy hell, man. Lots of travel. Sometimes good, sometimes it gets old, though, right? I'm with you. You'd buy the IP for Firestorm Armada and Halo Fleet battles and Ground Command, Assassin Red? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the Halo fleet battles and ground command stuff was good. Only because of the fact that it was too hobby oriented. I mean, it was like, 15 millimeter stuff that you had to be really good at the hobby in order to really have fun putting the models together, especially the ground battle stuff. You saw me do that commission if you were here when I was doing that. And those models were horrible to put together. They were fun to paint and all that. Yeah, they're small, but you still get a lot of detail on them. But they were horrible to put together because they were metal, they were on the sprue, they were hard to get off the sprue because of the way the bases were molded on them. And so if you were trying to attract people who enjoyed Halo as a video game into miniature wargaming, that was not the way to do it. So while the IP of Halo might be really cool in tabletop war games, Spartan screwed it up. They screwed the pooch. They did it totally wrong, in my opinion. Now, the fleet battles one a little bit different because, they had the ships and it's a little bit easier to do that modeling than the ground battle stuff. But the ground battle's not the way to do it. With Halo ground battles, I literally would have done it at 28 millimeter. I don't think it's a 15 millimeter game. There's just too much hobby hell and headache associated with 15 mil and 10 mil games. But I'm with you, yeah. And I'm not a big Halo fan. I don't care about the game. It's not that I like it or dislike it. I just never played it, right? But I know there are a lot of people that are who may not be involved in the hobby, and it would be great to get them into the hobby, but that was just not the way to do it. AK Prime, what's happening, man? Got a demo last night for Infinity. Fantastic, man. There is a lot to learn, but it is fun, and it is a smaller game. You don't have to have as many models, so you can still kind of have that comfort zone for outlay investment to get into the game, but it is very deep. So if your son was wanting something that was a little bit more in-depth, then there you go. There you go. Big Bob, Twig and Berries still hanging in the top right. Say what? Oh, yeah, it is. That's not Twig and Berries. That's just a booty. That's just a booty. We'd get fired for putting Twig and Berries on the stream. The ship one was better, yeah. Hey, Big Bob, what's happening? So we were going to be working on getting this guy to kind of the closing stages. If you've been hanging with us over the last week, we've been doing this paint-along. It's the first of our viewer paint-alongs. Hopefully there will be many more. And we have been really focused on doing some really cool techniques with flesh, with non-metallic metal, with all the bronze armor on this guy. Last night I was able to get in a little bit of time to get my bronze brought up to snuff, so I've got all of my bronze brought up to the kind of just sub completion stage. So he's looking really good. I'm very happy with the way he's turning out. Yesterday on stream we went through and did our dark green RLM 71 dark green and our hemp to get on the base for the toga cloak thing. Toga cloak. I don't know what they call them. In college, it was called a toga, but I don't know what this guy called it. So he's got his robes, and this is the base for our white that we will be doing. So believe it or not, even though we've got this kind of earthy green, almost like drab military color on there, the next thing we're going to do is start bringing that up to white. So that's where we're going to kick off today, is working on that robe and cloak and getting that up. And then once we see that value on the armor, we'll be able to better figure out how bright to take the armor, whether or not we go in with a little bit more ivory, maybe a little pinch of white to brighten it up. It's always best to wait until you have all of your values across the model brought up to a level that makes sense. Right now, with the robe being green, the armor looks really good against the skin, against the robe. Everything looks good. Once we start getting the white on here, it's going to brighten that robe up. Is that going to make the armor look too dull? Is it going to make it look... Generally, in my head, I would say it's going to start making it look duller than we really want it. So we're going to add a little bit of points of brightness, like on the breastplate as it peeks out of the robe, the shoulder, obviously, and then across the face and the helmet, maybe even the armbands and things of that nature. So, but always wait. Don't try to push any area of the model so bright that where you look like it right now and you're like, yeah, that looks awesome, that's perfect, because then you add more color on the model, you add more brightness on the model, and all that work can either be too much or too little and get you disgruntled. So it's easier just to kind of take everything to 75-80%, bring the next part to 75-80, 75-80, 75-80. When the whole model's kind of at that 75, 3/4 of the way done, then start pushing things to completion. That's the way we like to do it here. So without any further ado, let's mix up some colors. The first thing we're going to do is take white, whatever your white is that you enjoy. We're using my own special blend of white that you can buy over on slowfusegaming.com, and some hemp. So hemp was the last color that we used, but we're going to blend these two together. And real quick, I'll just kind of bring a section of palette paper out here so that you can see how I set up on the palette for mixing colors. It makes things really easy to keep track of your mix, right? And to not have to chase it all over your palette, right? So just put out a drop. And Mask Butt, what's going on? Great name. Vanilla Paints, welcome. Thank you so much for the follows. Genuine, what the hell's going on, my friend? I love that name, Mask Butt. That's awesome. Your brother almost bought into Wargaming with a Halo game until he found out about that, and it turned... Yeah, exactly, right, Grins? I mean, that's unfortunate that it's the small scale. The models suck for the Halo ground battles, and it's just too tough. It's just too difficult to, make it work. So, basically, I just put the drops right together, and then I bring, a tail of paint like I do out in a little Y shape here, and then right down at the bottom, I'll mix that together. I'll keep all three of these colors sort of in the same area, though, so that I get this mix, and I've always got my two to go back to, right? Just real simple. This may seem like, you make a Mickey Mouse head out of it, right? It seems like the simple crap that everybody should know, but at the end of the day, this will save you a lot of hassle, because then I work all my thinning out from this splotch, and I always see up here, right? Because this area up here will dry, and I'll have that color up there to reference. Rather than pulling paint from up here, I'll always pull from down here. Okay, and that way I keep my mix so that anytime I need to add more white, add more green, I just make it match, right? So, may seem like the simple stuff that's not worth talking about, but I feel like it always has some impact. So let's grab the lovely new glasses. And we're going to take this blend of hemp and white and just start pulling with the side of the brush down these folds from the shoulder. Right, the idea being to lay in a little bit of brightness on top of that base layer of just hemp. And remember, we like to work really, really thin on this channel. If you're just joining us for the first time, you'll be surprised at how thin I paint. A lot of people joke, and you hear the Warhammer people say 2 thin coats, and that's not enough. Right? For the way that I paint, 2 thin coats ain't going to cut it. You basically are going on like watercolor here. Hopefully you can see that it'll take a couple of coats to get that edge brought up nice and bright like that. But I can use the thinner layers to give me kind of a light, thin transition over the original hemp so that my hemp still shows through. I'm not trying to cover it up 100%. That's why I don't paint with opaque paints very often. I always want my base layers to do work for me. Gives me a lot of control over how every single brush stroke looks on the model and what the ultimate goal is. All right, so across this like flat area on this lapel fold here, I'll just go in and give it a couple of thin strokes with this blend so that I'm not sinking my hemp and dark green shadow completely, but I am brightening it up quite a bit. Same thing down here on this little fold going into the underarm area. Right. It gives us a really nice look, right, without stepping up too bright instantaneously. Right, good coverage, but you see how the hemp, the lighter green and darker green in the fold still plays its part. We still get to see that, which is what we're looking for. We want to have this cloak look like it's a little bit dirty, a little bit frazzled. Right, we're not looking to make everything look like they wash and bleach and have their stuff dry cleaned every day. So it's not super crisp. We just want to continue with that all the way through all the spots here. Paying attention as we go lower as to where we would have shadow so that we're not overtaking any of our shadow spots. Right, so the top of this knee would be fairly bright as it sticks out from the rest of the model. Same as it kind of transitions around the corner here on the top of the thigh. So I'll continue to build up layers there. Again, using the side of the brush as much as I can as opposed to the point so that I get a nice smooth coverage like that. But I want to make sure that I leave a nice amount of darkness right in here where you're seeing it build up now. Okay? So I get that shadow and that transition from the way the model and the folds all work. So be paying attention to that. This model is really good with the sculpt, and it's got this line right across here and here that shows where the drape of the robe hits and then kind of buckles under as it goes towards the waist. So the weight of it sits right here, and that's where the light would kind of stop intruding so much. Okay, so the sculpt is guiding our hand quite a bit, which is nice. I should have filled my water dish up. It's been so dry here. All right, so I do want to catch the outer edge, this part of the fold as it goes down below. Up inside of it as it kind of pooches out away from the armor here. Lay in a little bit of thin paint in there. So, but now as I go lower, I want to reduce the amount of paint on my brush. Notice how I'll take a bunch of paint off on my thumb, so where now there's not much at all, almost like dry brushing. And I'll just come in here very lightly, start grabbing the inner folds. I want to make sure I pick up that detail in there. So I'll get in there with the point of the brush. There's that fold way down deep. It's still in shadow, so I don't want to brighten it up too much. But I want to be able to pick out its edge so that you get it. Right? You still see it on the model, like so. We haven't brightened it up to the point where we did the fold up above it, but we've got just enough light colored paint coming off of there. That's like 10 or 20 strokes already on that. And then same thing down below. I want to get just enough of this lighter mix color built up that it doesn't make it look like we transitioned strictly to dark green out of nowhere. So build up a little bit in there. Push it into those shadows. Thing up here. A little bit through this area. Barely any pigment on my brush at all right now. So that all it's doing is making sure that I don't have any really rough transitions from bright kind of mix into that dark shadow. Right? I still maintain the way that I got that line I was talking about, then I get shadows in the cloak, and then it gets brighter across the top of the thigh, and that's all just relevant to this particular model because of the shape of what we're painting. So what you're really doing here is looking at the model at each stage and saying, okay, I get that this would be brighter across the chest because there's nothing to shade it really, right? The way his head is turned, his chin doesn't even shade this part of the breast and down to the waist. But then here it kicks under, right? You can see that angle, how the folds all kick under towards the waistline. So there I want to make sure I don't brighten up as much, but then bring that brightness back on the top of the thigh. And then look, like the top of this fold, even though it's down low, the top of the fold still has nothing obstructing it, so go a little bit darker, or a little bit lighter, excuse me. Same thing, top of the fold over here, a little bit lighter, and just pick them out. But do them all with the same consistency of paint, working very, very thin so that you don't get just rough lines. You don't want a stark line sticking out on the top of the fold so it looks like, you know, somebody painted it. You want it to blend very nicely, so that's why I'm taking the time to, you know, do 10 and 11 strokes of very thin paint. I mean, notice how thin we're going, right? There's barely any paint there at all. And just build it up. Patience. They're not lying when they say it's a virtue. I have very little of it with most things in life, but for some reason when it comes to painting, it's just nicer because I know the outcome will be so much better if I just take my time. Don't rush it. Brighten this edge up here up a little bit. Section down here. Every time I add paint down lower on a model, I'm always going back and seeing how it relates to what I've done up high. Is it too bright down low and it makes the top look dull? Then I'll go back up top and kind of hit it again. Give it another thin layer so it brightens it up just a hair. Now remember, we still have white to put on this, so we don't have to worry too much about how bright certain areas are, because when we hit it with pure white, you bet your butt we're going to get brightness out of this stuff. We just want to give this slight 50-50 mix between hemp and white a chance so that we don't jump straight to bright white on the cloak. Right, so that's looking really good. Good fabric layout there. The sculpt is fantastic. It really sells the fact that this is a robe, right? Unlike some other model makers that get lazy with how they sculpt fabric, Arena Rex knocked it out of the park. Which, by the way, this is an Arena Rex model. For those of you that do not know, this is the Tribune for the Ludus Magnus faction of Arena Rex. We have been, if you look at Sunday's VOD, we played our Ludus Magnus School Gladiators, which these are the 3 out of the starter box. We played them against the Morituri faction that Mike painted up, and Jen and I did that on her birthday, and so this is the rest of the faction that we are matching our bronze colors with. So you can see how all the guys who have got metal on them were kind of carrying that same theme throughout on our guys. Snipe, what's going on? I'm doing great. How about you? Finally made a second account and going to be able to upload some progression photos. Fantastic, man. I did not reset the gallery, Seb. I didn't because I wanted to take the time at the end of the show today, take all of the progress pics from the paint along, all of the viewers that are also painting this guy. We sold a bunch of them in the series that we call the paint along, and we sold them to viewers. The viewers are taking and painting along with us. It was a pre-release model at the time that we sold it. And so what our goal is to take all of the update shots that people have supplied me with. If you haven't posted yours in the WIP gallery, but you've been painting along with us, make sure you send those to me privately, and we will get those into their own paint along gallery for this particular model. So I want to show all that stuff off because you guys have been doing an absolutely fantastic job with this model. So I want to make sure that everybody else gets to partake and see how great you guys have been doing. And I just want to keep them for posterity's sake because you guys have been knocking it out of the park. So I didn't want to delete those photos. Is the short story there. 20 thin coats, not 2. Exactly, Drago. Max Payne, what's going on? Orc Pride, what's happening? Welcome back. All right, so I think my mix is probably run dry here. So see, my mix up here is dry now. Like I said, we live in Arizona and it's super dry here. But now I can just take more paint and now I have that mix that was already there to kind of judge by and make sure that I don't over or under mix my color as I need to add more, right? So that way I nail it, get it exactly the same. And then you just keep doing that same process with it. Just an easy artist technique working on a flat palette where you don't have like a special cup for your mix or anything like that. All right, let's zoom back in here. ISO. I'm going to start over here on the side. Again, just very, very light, wet coats. Here, focusing more towards the middle of each of the folds for building up paint, because it's shaded obviously from where the wrap is, and then it's shaded where it goes down into his arm. So you don't push paint too far in any direction or either direction, right? Keep it kind of centered. You don't want to make it look metallic, so you don't want to, you don't want to go too bright in the center and then fade out too, harsh off to the sides, right? But just play around with it. I feel like that's looking pretty good. Yeah, like that. So we maintain that shadow line as it folds up underneath and then as it dips down into the arm as well. And here, because it's not metallic, I'm not going to highlight edges that drop into shadow, right? Like if this were a hard surface, we would take some of these edges, like the bottom edge here, and we'd probably highlight it as it dips into shadow. But this is cloth, so it's going to look completely different. So you're not worried about that. You're literally just worried about the part you can see, right? Got this big old hunk of yellow on my thumb wanting to come off. It's kind of annoying. Right, all right. A little bit more up underneath here. Always just checking out the model, looking at it. I want that little fold on the inside to pop just a little bit more, but be deeper than the one above it. I think that's pretty good right there. Same thing. Brighten this up right out here where there's nothing to really shadow it on the corner of that fold. And then start getting these that are underneath. Just gently lightening them up as I go. You'll notice no single brush stroke puts enough paint on the model to really even tell what color I'm painting with. It takes it quite a bit of time layering on each one of these sections of the model before you're really going to be able to tell the color that you're using. And if you're doing it right, then you really never know the specific color. You're just going to get, like a particular value below what's on the palette. Because I'm always mixing my colors either, 2 shades darker than what I'm really looking for in general, or in some cases lighter than what I'm looking for if I'm going over a very dark base. Because they're going to look very different as you put them on the model. A little bit built up down here, so we pick up that detail of that fold. But again, make sure this one up above it is brighter, and then this one up above it is brighter still. We're talking about really, really soft transitions here, so it's not that you're going to notice necessarily the change in value instantaneously, but we want this little spot right here that pokes out to be a little bit brighter. I got a good nerve of paint on the brush there. That. And then this fold right here to be a little bit brighter still than this down here. So just keep looking at it, testing it. Try not to push it too far, you know, be really gentle with the way your paint's going on, light-handed. Take a step back, look at it, say, okay, you know, I feel like I could brighten this up just a little bit more. Then take a look at it, say, okay, that's looking better. Try not to push this part right here too bright, because if you do, then you got to brighten this up, then you got to brighten this, then you got to brighten this, then you got to brighten this, then you got to brighten all this, right? So you got to backtrack as you brighten things at the bottom of the model, because remember, it's all about overall composition. It's all about being able to look from top to bottom on the model and see value throwing down. So I've got shadows, I got brights, but if I put too much brightness down here, then I got to over brighten this up here in order to stabilize it and get that balance back. That's going to be too much water. All right, now let's get down here again where we've got this large splatter panel that's always daunting to paint. And again, I'm just gonna, we've got this drape in the cloth again. Right? It has this kind of half moon drape, and we're just gonna take it and then light strokes, kind of work those light strokes down towards the corner. Take it from the drape, like so. Come back in here where I have that edge, and I'll just kind of lightly blend that edge in. I've barely got any paint on the brush at all by this point, right? I've used it all doing this, right? Grabbing the fold, right? Blending the fold in, blending it down. And at the point where you start seeing less and less paint coming off your brush, now before reloading your brush, take your brush and use it to feather these edges. Because you'll have just enough paint by that point that you can still do some damage with it, but not so much that everywhere you touch will be super bright. Make sense? Sorry I banged the camera. I really need more water in my water cup. Might have to go do that here pretty quick. All right, a little bit more across this front edge. Here I keep this fold up above just as bright. Like I said, I got to look and say, as I brighten this one, how does it match with this, and then this, and then this, so on and so forth. Got to come back and reevaluate each stage of the model as I add color down below. That's looking good, giving us that kind of dirty feel. Before we move on to the other spots, I need to lighten this shadow right here. Notice how this shadow here is very, very deep. I need to be able to make sure that I come in here and give it just a nice thin coat to bring it into the range that we're working in on all these other areas. Same with these folds that go over the knee. They're a little too dark, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of this very, very thin paint in there. That'll help us bring that shadow back in line. Same thing back here, just a little bit. Working from the dark shadow out of it, not trying to push paint up into it. Finger. Now we get a nice blend as it moves up into the darkness, and it's okay to have it remain dark all the way up in there. We can't really see any detail up in there anyway, so it doesn't make sense for us to try to push paint too far up underneath. Anywhere where I see these folds that I want to lighten up just a bit, because we still have white to drop on here. So if any of this is super dark, It's going to look funky when the white finally lays over the top of the cloth. So that's looking really good. I think that this part is probably done now for the fun part, which is the cape. Lots of big smooth areas. They're the least amount of fun when you're painting thin, like we talked about yesterday. Hey Ravenous, what's going on, man? I'm doing well. How about yourself? You hear you missed a raffle win last night? You did, sir. Your phone died. What? What? That sucks, Orc. We were like, is he pooping? Hashtag making porridge? Yep. That blows, man. I'm sorry to hear it. All right. Mix a little bit more. I can't do the Twitch on the phone thing. It never works for me. Like I can't interact the way I want to. I know they got apps that, you know, everybody is using, but I'm not a fan, man. I feel like Twitch is an experience made for sitting at your computer, but I get it. You know, we have people that watch us or listen to us. Hopefully they don't watch us as they're driving home from work. But I get people all the time saying that I make their commute to and from work so much better and yada yada, and I'm like, that's awesome, except I hope you're not watching. So I'm glad that you can partake in it like that, I guess kind of like a podcast sense, right? Again, just starting from the top shoulder, lightening up as I go, grabbing these. Notice how I'm not putting too much bright paint up underneath the drop of the helm here. I'm starting right outside where that shaded section would be because of the neck protector on the helm. So I leave it dark up underneath here. Going to give us a lot of dimension as we go towards conclusion here. So simple things. Pushing some brightness on these folds. Now I'm going to start with the long, you know, continuous strokes that we talk about, right? Coming down from this section here in the middle, and I just want to ride this line all the way down as smooth as possible using the side of the brush so I don't get much brush stroke indention on there, right? But just lighten up that edge, right? Just right along here. That's going to set up how we spread from that area. So we'll load up with a little bit more paint, right? Now we'll come and use the side of the brush and go a little bit wider, following right down along that edge. Again, a little bit wider. That's why I'm using the side of the brush. Notice how much paint I'm being able to squidge onto the surface here with the side. Again, this is why we make our brushes the way we do, these slow fuse bomb wicks. We make them with a nice long blade taper to them as opposed to a barreled artist brush so that I can do this, right? I can use the entire side of this brush, right? And without putting a lot of texture on there, I can drop a lot of color just by using the side because the side has this flat taper, right? Notice how there's no real barrel shape there. The whole side is going to touch equally as I pull my strokes. Lori, what's going on? Thank you so much. Welcome. You don't text and drive, you chat and search Google while driving? It's probably safer. Probably safer. What I want is I want somebody that has Rise for Ruin. Thank you so much. Welcome, man. Hey, Melonhead, what's happening? I'm really wanting to know and have somebody tell the story of how they partake in chat because they have a text-to-speech, speech-to-text app in their car. So you're driving and like you're listening to this, right? Because like things that are typed in chat, your car's reading to you. How great would that be? Like how insane would that be? I want somebody to do that, take video of it, and then put it on YouTube and show me. Just don't die while doing it. Or if you do die while doing it, don't tell anybody that it's my show you're listening to. I don't need that kind of I don't need that kind of recognition. We're not looking for our 15 minutes of fame that way. And again, use the side of the brush, brighten up that same area. How insane would it be if your car was like, you know, Reading out chat. That would be the worst, dude. Oh, I forgot. There's like a little bit of real texture on this model right around this area, isn't there? We talked about it yesterday. So I'm going to have to be real
somebody
careful.
Likes us.
The surface of the plastic is a little rough right here on this dip where that shadow is. Right in there. Notice how the paint is kind of getting rocky right along in there? It's because there's actually a rough texture on the model that I forgot to clean up, I guess. So I got to work around it now. PCP Unicorn, what's going on? Welcome. Thank you for that follow. Lightly. See if I can't get rid of some of this quote-unquote texture that's building up here. We still have white that we have to go on. This cloak will be white at the end of the day, so not too worried, but I do want to make sure I can get this edge lightened up. Don't mind that a little bit of that shadow falls in there. That's okay. What I don't want, though, is this kind of really rough area that I'm getting. So I'm going to leave it alone for now because the paint's really wet. So for me to fix that, I got to let it set up and dry. But over here, we're good. So now we just need to repeat this on all these other folds. All right, so again, coming out of this, just one nice long stroke. Followed by another and another because we're working thin. Build it up as we go. Until it finally dips off into the shadow here. So. Now we want to match that on this side when we have, now that we've got less paint on the brush, we can come back into this part of the billow of the cloak where we want it to be darker, but we don't want it to be as dark as it is. We don't want it to sit and be complete dark green, right? We just want it to be lighter than the top. So where these two meet, we got to put a little bit of paint just to lighten up that base coat. And again, this is where painting thin comes in handy.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Gives me the control to be able to put just the right amount of paint over a shadow, drop it where I need it, raise it up to the point that I need it, right? I can do that. I still maintain a little bit more darkness on this side than here. Kawaii Rosa, welcome. Thank you for that follow. Your Windows phone would read out text through Bluetooth, so we should just text it all to you. TK. You couldn't get the car to play it via hookups or Bluetooth? Oh, seriously, Drago? I know my car has a problem with playing podcasts via Bluetooth. It'll play music on my phone, but it won't play my podcast app via Bluetooth, so I have to use the cord, right? I got to plug the cord into the aux deal in the car all the time. It's a pain in the ass. Considering that when I'm driving, I typically am listening to podcasts more than anything else. I want to lighten this fold up a little bit more. Starting to look really good. Fold down below is starting to get brighter than our folds up top. So again, we just always want to be making sure that we identify that. Put a little bit more brightness on the folds towards the top of the model. Get balance out since we're kind of doing this in two halves. Start to match a little bit better. Now on this one, the last, I've been working from the brightest fold that's, got the most billow towards the top and our lighting source being the sun, right? So I've been trying to work from this one down. Now, it's not that this one's going to be in the shade too much. It will have some dark spots from the weapon, right? So we've already got that kind of built in. It's darker right in here where it cuts, where his, what is this thing called? A fasces? I forget what this weapon is called. Again, we just want to lightly start glazing this mix in from that spot where the axe handle covers up onto the cloth there. And I'll brighten more as I go down away from the handle. And then you'll notice I won't take my brush strokes up this far anymore. I'll only come from like here, 2/3 of the way down as I build up more color. That way I'll naturally get this shadow built in around where the axe handle is. Gnozel, what's happening? Ravenous, it's been one of those days, taking a break and going to read into rules from Ice Storm. Been one of those days. It's been one of those days. For me, it's been one of those days. I feel a little off today, physically off. I don't know what's going on. So that's what my problem's been. It hasn't been that it's been a bad day, but I hope yours gets better, man. Don't let it drag you down, brother. Put a little bit more paint here. My brush is getting furry. You only drink and drive. You don't listen to podcasts or watch streams while driving. I'm serious about this. If I'm gonna screw up while driving, I'm just gonna get drunk. Ravenous, when I have a second, could you please rattle off the colors you would use for a non-metallic silver steel? Yeah, let me get done with this cloak and then we'll talk about it. Remind me though. Or actually, I can talk about it while we're doing stuff. I just can't show you the colors. For steel, I always go through grays. And it's your choice as to how blue you take those grays. The more you want shining steel to chrome kind of effect, the more you would go into bluish grays. But I start with obviously black, and then I would work out of black with black gray, and then light gray. If you wanted it to be more chrome, you would work out of black gray to, say, neutral gray, and then something, instead of light gray, maybe something like wolf gray or ice, what is the other one called? Ghost gray, something like that. Those typical named colors generally have a little bit more blue to them. And so you'll get a little bit of that blue added in naturally and not have to do it all artificially with glazes after the fact. Or you could just get used to doing all of your steel work up from black gray to light gray with then white peaks for all of your super shiny parts, right? And then glaze in blues after the fact, and you'd be fine. But that's how I do all of my steel. And it's just then how shiny you want dictates how much gray you put on the model, right? So if you're looking for very shiny steel, then obviously you'll put more of your gray over your black gray and more of your light gray over your gray. If you want duller steel, you will use much less of your gray over your black gray and much less of your light gray at all, right? And maybe not any white. Right, so just like anything else, just leave more of your darker colors showing across more of the surface if you want the metal to be dull. More of the brighter color if you want it to look shinier. It's a little bit different in that regard than when you see me working with golds and yellow metals like I'm doing here. You know, as we pull this up to a bronze rather than a gold, you'll see me using lighter colors to dictate the metal type, right? Thank you very much for that. I missed it, so I'll read it when it shows up over here. I appreciate it. You know, so I'll use lighter colors on my quote-unquote golds here so that they stop looking like golds and I start pushing them into polished bronzes. But with steel, the lighter you go, there's really not, I guess there's sort of versions of steel. You could do like, you know, iron, right? And like raw iron and that kind of dulled steel would be more blacks, less of your bright whites. But other than that, it's literally the brighter you go, the shinier it's going to look. You don't have the same crossover with the gray metals.
Another day, another crazy old man painting.
Another crazy old man painting. Thank you, my friend. Currently 20 minutes into a game of Mordheim on PC without seeing a single enemy. You're scared, Gnozel? I got the game and I haven't played it. Do I have Ebola, my Lord Megatron? I sure hope not. Greenleaf, what's happening, man? You watch the stream and eat Oreos? You're living on the edge, man. Janarin, welcome. Thank you for that follow. Killing Time Painting says happy hump day. Same to you, my friend. Welcome back. All right, so let's just keep pushing. This is looking pretty good, though. Not a whole lot left to do. With this color, at least. I want to lighten up the inside folds here just a little bit so the shadow isn't quite as dark on this top one. Blending as I go so I don't get any like really hard lines anywhere between my dark and light spots. Notice how, just like yesterday, I'm using very loose brush strokes on this because of the fabric. If this were a harder surface, like if I wanted it to, if this were clean, flat plastic, then we'd be taking more time and making sure that each of our brush strokes were nice and parallel and blending side to side and all of that. Here, because of the fact that it's fabric and we can play around with the texture, right? Give it kind of a loose brush stroke so that you feel like there's thread content to this. We got to kind of fool the eye because in reality it is just hard plastic, right? All these models are just plastic. But to make them not look like plastic, because the sculptors at this scale can't really factor in fabric. Right? This guy did a great job with the folds and making sure that this looks like fabric, but it still can't have the texture of fabric at the scale in the sculpt very easily without looking really, really awkward. Again, just lightening up these inside folds just a little bit. Good. I think we got a little bit of spot on this side that is still really dark. Bring it out just a little bit. Keep the point side of the brush up in there. Good. Got a little bit of shadow around where the haft of the axe is. Hard to tell because the axe is still black, but once we get that brown on the axe, you'll be able to see that a lot better. And again, always looking at, like, from the front of the model, do I feel like the brightness on the front side of his robe matches how I am on the back? They're not, you're never going to see them together, but just for kind of posterity's sake, try to keep things as even as you can. Come back over here where we have that texture issue. See if we can't load up enough paint to hide all that. I feel like that does it pretty well. We got to get a little bit up in here and between the legs. We can't have that be the dark green. We didn't do much with the hemp in there, did we? So I'm gonna have to go back to just straight hemp first. Nice, I caught that. I think yesterday we stopped before we did the inside of the cloak. We need to do that foist. Because this is just our dark green. There's none of the hemp color on there at all. So if I just went in with our mix that we're using right now, it would look atrocious. We've got to play around here first. Not a little bit. Nope. I'm just going straight hemp now to catch these areas that we missed. Give it an interim color coat. I do want all of this up in here much darker. So I don't have to put much of either of these, much of the hemp or much of the mix in here. I just can't have it be black, or the dark green and the black base, because otherwise it looks like it was a two-tone cloak, which is not what we're going for. No reason why you can't do that, just probably not good on this guy. Given the historic period and all that, probably not what we're going for. Prowler Plays, welcome. Thank you for that follow. Mucho apreciado. Gotta learn what the real word for much appreciated is. I feel like appreciado is probably upsetting to some people. Like, that gringo doesn't even know what he's talking about. Which would be 100% correct. I have no idea what I'm talking about. 9 times out of 10. Every now and then I get lucky. Even a broken clock is right twice a day, correct? That's what I learned growing up. Wit. Notice how, if you can see it, a lot of people ask me about like the basics of brush control. Notice how as I'm pulling these lines, I've actually got, you know, my, in this case, my ring finger on my left hand going over to my pointing finger, my index finger on my right, and that's giving me stability on this, right? So that I can use that as a basis for going in and being able to pull a brush stroke right along this edge of the fold. Right? I'm putting a lot of pressure on these 2 fingers right here to balance that so that it's giving me a nice tipping point for stability. And of course, I work at a standing desk for anybody that's wondering, and that way I can lay my arms directly on my my work surface, which helps a ton. I can't really tell you how much a standing desk changes your painting. No matter who you are. I've had people that have been like, oh, I fought it, I didn't want to get a standing desk, and when I did, holy hell, it made such a difference. Just because now, even though as painters, we're always, like you see me, right? You're staring at the top of my head because I'm like bending down to see what I'm doing. But the fact that you can basically, where did that come from? That would be bad. Let's not do that. The fact that you're basically just bending at the neck and not from your lower back is what helps me a ton, right? As I sit here and paint now, I'm just bending my neck down. And while if you do it for 8 hours in a row, yeah, you'll probably get a sore neck. You're not going to get all that back pressure that we get when we sit in a chair forever. Here we go, Dr. Fuse, telling you to learn to paint standing up. I feel like I want to get a little bit even up in these darker areas. I apologize if you can't see what I'm doing, but I need to get right in that dark strip and that dark strip. I'll see if I can do this in a way that makes sense on stream. I don't need a ton of paint in there, but I need to have something other than dark green being the only color there. You guys know I have a problem with there being a part of my models that only has one color paint on it. I don't know what it is. It's just a weird, freaky problem with me. Call it what is it called? You have a phobia. I have a phobia of there being parts of my models that only have one color on them. So I'm always trying to make sure that even in a shadow like that isn't really even seen. I mean, very rarely is anybody gonna look at the model and notice that inside portion of the cloak, right? But I feel like it's always better to err on the side of caution and just get a little bit of paint in there. Doesn't have to be the nicest blend in the world, just has to give you a spot so that you know it doesn't go from whatever color you're painting to black, let's say, or, you know, super dark or super light. Now we'll go back and blend some more with our 50-50 white and hemp. And again, we don't need too much because these areas are shaded down here on the cloak, on the underside. But it is white fabric, so one thing you have to remember is that depending on how thick the weave is on a particular fabric, how much light does it let through, right? Because like white fabric that has a very thin weave would let a shit ton of light through it, and so it would be brighter on both sides. You don't get the effect necessarily of like a heavy-duty light blocking curtain, right? You can kind of understand the differences that you're dealing with there, and so you got to make the choice. How do you want it to look? Do you want this to appeal to the senses as being a very heavy cloak? Then you would paint this inside part darker, right? So that you get the weight of it by virtue of the shadow that's cast on the inside versus the light white color on the outside, right? It feels like a big light blocking shade. Typically feel like medieval cloaks would be like that. For some reason, I feel like this stuff would be a little bit lighter fabric. I don't know why. Roman toga? I don't know. I feel like this would be more like wearing a sheet. Like a heavy sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this a little bit lighter, but not too light. Just making sure that these folds give us a little bit of brightness in here. Like so. Still get quite a bit of shade as it transitions up into the darkness where we got just the mid-tone there. As a matter of fact, we probably want to pull a little bit further up into that shadow. Blend it a little bit better. Again, my phobia. That. A little bit better transition on those. And I feel like that's pretty good. Yeah. Now we just got to get between his legs. Got to get between this guy's legs. Hey, what kind of channel is this? What are you running here? Oh, wait. Damn it. I just screwed that up too. That doesn't have any hemp. Got to go back to pure hemp, no mix. And get this section too. Looks like there's a little bit of flesh or parasite brown on that. Hopefully we can cover that up. Yeah. Just being careful not to get any on his leg here. This was a pain in the ass the last time we had to do this. I think I did it right like this angle here. Have to really square the brush off pretty bad, which screws with the hairs in order to do this. Just the sculpt of the model doesn't give me a very open way to get paint in here. Switch my angle to this side. There we go. Here I want to work from probably about, I don't know, what is that? Maybe a third of the way down distance-wise from his, what we have as his sculpted crotch to the edge is all I'm pulling paint on. Right, so right about here, and then just pull down to the bottom edge. Try to do it as consistent as you can, given the shape of this model. For those of you painting this model at home, this one's going to be a tough one, but be careful, you'll get it. That way we leave our darkness up top. Right, and we'll lighten it as it goes down towards the bottom like that. That's pretty good. Again, this is even more in shadow than the underside of the cloak, so we're not super worried about putting too much bright paint in here. A little bit more of our mix. Our 50-50 hemp and white now. I got some chunky bits. I think I need to mix more paint. Glaze and blend that back. Front portion. Do it a little bit further on the low side. And then here now, instead of a third, we probably want to catch it from about halfway, like so, and pull our paint down towards the bottom. really loose because of my angle on this. That. A little bit more really, really wet so I can blend that right up around the top edge here. That's looking pretty good. Not super worried about that inside part, but need to have it be to where you get enough shadow to sell it. That's pretty good. Blend is okay. Except for like right over here as it goes underneath his thigh and knee area. I feel like I need a little bit more brightness down low. There we go. That works. Brighten this up just a hair. Bingo. Now we're ready. I think. Oh, nope. We got this shitty area down in there. As if the cloak in between the legs wasn't bad enough. Now we got this little crappy area I forgot about. We did do hemp in this area though, but I want to get just the tops of the folds as they peek through here at the waist. Not too bright. But again, just enough to sell the overall story that that's also cloaked down in there. Just a little. Good. All right. I'm feeling it. So now we've got a good basis for our white to go over, right? And now we ensure ourselves when our white drops on that there won't be an area where it just stands so stark next to the dark green and the mid-tone hemp that it, you know, gives us that really, really rough transition. Looks like I might need a little bit right there. Spoke too soon. Right in here. I keep forgetting this isn't armor. This is also robe. Brighten up a little bit under his arm. A little bit brighter towards the front. And then as it reaches the middle, it'll dip off into shadow again as it goes into all that bunching fold here. There we go. Now I feel like we got it. Oh, stop hitting the camera, Fuse. Now to pick the camera, the colors out of the Army Painter Mega Paint Set. Yeah, for Army Painter on the grays, you don't really have a black gray, do you? You might. You could use like, I think for Army Painter, you've got like Necromancer's Cloak or something like that. You've got a couple of really dark grays. Hardened Carapace and the other one. Dark Stone. I feel like those have a little bit of brown in them, so for steel, they may not work near as good as just a black gray, but you can take your flat black or your matte black from Army Painter and mix it with any of the grays that you choose and get your black gray out of that. That's what I would suggest, because the one thing that Army Painter is missing is a nice black gray. I just don't feel like they have a good one. Matte black. Sitting here looking at my paint rack real quick. Necromancer Cloak. Necromancer Cloak might be the one. Let's put a little bit out here and see. Yeah, Necromancer Cloak is your key. If you have that in the Mega Paint Set, Necromancer Cloak can be your black gray. That doesn't have any brown in it, right? Not enough to matter. That's a good color. Right? There's a little bit of earthy feel to it, but nah, that's perfect. Yeah, just use Necromancer Cloak if you got that. That's a good black gray. I might try that in one of my next models. That's the first time I've opened that color. Is it because it's called Necromancer's Cloak and not dark gray, light gray, whatever? I miss sometimes on that stuff, you know, because it has a name like, you know, Bile. And I'm like, my head just doesn't wrap around what Bile is until I actually use it and put it into my catalog, so. Have you ever had your soul crushed by XCOM? It's 20 times worse. Yeah. Yeah. I've had some of my best dudes in XCOM die when you least expect it. Like by one shots from aliens, so yeah, I get that. Ray Silver, so you run a little late and you paint half the damn model today? Look out. Look out. Can't stop us. You can only hope to contain us. Too British to Quidditch, what's going on? It's obrigado. Mucho obrigado. Too British to Quidditch? You're too British to Quidditch, but you're teaching me Spanish? Ah, we just broke the space-time continuum. Obrigado is a word I will never remember. I will try, though. Mucho obrigado. Somebody confirm that? Am I saying something horrible, or is that saying much appreciated? Mucho obrigado. I don't want to get it right, though. If I get it right, people think I speak Spanish, and then I'm screwed, because I will know like 4 words. Unless the clock is digital, at which point in time a broken clock is maybe never right. Telebadger. Always ruining stuff. Jeez. Sophuse, what company did I get the desk from? Ravenous, I bought the lift section off of Amazon. It was like, I want to say they were like $250 a piece. We bought one for Jen and one for myself. It's just a very heavy-duty, sturdy set of legs. I read all the reviews of their manual crank. There's a crank over here that I crank with my hand and raise the desk up and down. And they make electric ones, but I don't like the idea of an electric desk because it uses a worm gear that I'm afraid would break. So on this, for the manual cranks, I just looked around at the ones that had reviews that said it was very sturdy and it didn't jiggle when it was at full height. Because I'm 6'1", so for me, you know, this is full height that it's at right now. So if I back it up for you guys so you can see, you know, this is higher than my elbow height. Like in order to get my arm on here, I got to lift my arm up a little bit to press it on the table. My elbow height is like down here, right? So if I just swing out from the side of my body, that's elbow. Right, so if I just walk straight up to it, that's where it hits me, right? And my keyboard, right, is my keyboard, and like here's my belly button, and hits my keyboard like right here, right? So my keyboard tray is at like belly button height, and then elbows here, right? So I just needed it to be sturdy at that height, so that's what I was looking for mainly. And then, hey, Studio Dropship, thank you for the host. Languages are hard. You'll stick with Cockney rhyming slang. Yeah, exactly. Obrigado is thank you. So Apophis, I could just say that. I could just say obrigado. I don't have to say mucho obrigado. That probably it would make people laugh just like mucho apreciado. So maybe I should just keep saying that. What's up, Gooch? You just started painting last December and improving how you painted your Marines? Nice. But as far as the desktop is from IKEA, this wood desktop, again, if I back out, you can see it's just a big butcher block top that IKEA uses as one of their random tables. It's like probably a little more than an inch thick. I think it's $80. So I think all total, these were $300 for a desk, which I didn't think was a bad deal, right? Because the manual one from IKEA was like $350. And when you raised it to full height in the store and moved it around, it was like all janky. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but I felt like, I'll see if I can buy the legs someplace else and we'll buy the tops. Because I had already bought these tops when I built us some standing desks in the old studio before we moved. So, but they were just on solid legs that I built. You couldn't adjust them. The nice thing about this is that while you could just build legs and put a tabletop on it and have a standing desk, the nice thing is that half the time I don't want to be standing. So when I'm off stream, I'll lower it down to sitting and I'll paint while sitting for an hour or two, maybe 3, and then I'll crank it back up and stand. Then I'll crank it back down and sit. It only takes like a minute to crank the desk to full height. So it's not like a waste of time. I just have to move one light so that it doesn't hit the camera as I raise and lower the desk, because the camera is attached to a big rig from our ceiling. So the camera doesn't move with the desk. This one does, but this one doesn't. So I just have to move one light out of the way and then crank it down, and then move the light out of the way and crank it up. So it's pretty easy. And like I said, I think all total probably $300, you know, each for the tables, which I didn't think was a bad deal. It's hard to stomach that cost, you know, when we have to buy 2 of them, but it wasn't horrible, not too shabby. I don't remember the name though, unfortunately. Necromancer is in the Mega Paint set. Nice. Nice, Raven. I'm going to need to link all this stuff in the forums, Armans? What, my desk and everything? Shoot. Armans is the king of finding new work for me to do. I see how this works. He's like the whipped crack. He sends me messages on Facebook going, hey, you probably ought to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, I got too much to do already. Yeah, Ravenous. I suggest it. And the butcher block top from IKEA is great because I want to say it's 34 or maybe even 36 inches deep. So I get lots of desktop. It's awesome. So if you have the space, I recommend doing it like this. And the legs, as long as you center them up on the tabletop nicely, don't care. I think they say a max of like 39 inches of depth of desktop, which is plenty. Right? You could use a door. I know people that go to Home Depot and buy the flat hollow core doors, and those are even cheaper. Like you can get a hollow core door sometimes at Home Depot for like $50 for the top. So get a hollow core wood door, and then you can screw it in. The only problem with those is that screwing the legs in is a little janky because it's hollow core, right? So you might have to bolt the legs with the screws going through the top of the door, then down through the legs in order to get it to where you feel like it's going to stay put. This is solid wood, so it just screw up from the bottom, but it worked great. I'm like, Kenny, I need a personal assistant. Yeah. Jen is always hounding me. She's like, can I do something to help? And I'm horrible at asking people for help, number one. But you have an electric standing desk, Houdini? Yeah, I think they're great. I mean, for painting, being able to sit and stand and sit and stand is awesome. It'll change your world as far as your hobbying goes. It's that leaning over from the waist, and then everybody says in order to get your miniature nice and stabilized, that you've got to bring your shoulders up and put your elbows into your chest and get your hands set so you can be painting stable. And the problem is that is horrible posture, and your spine will hate you forever for doing that. Especially because we sit down and we don't do this for 10 minutes. We generally do it for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, getting tunnel vision, listening to a podcast. 8 hours later, you can't move. You're like walking around the house all hunched over like an old man, right? Because you've been in that position for like 8 straight hours. So. Obrigado is Portuguese. Mucho is Spanish for a lot. So I'm kind of saying many thanks. Sort of, kind of, Apophis. That's what we're going for. We don't want to get the languages correct. We don't want to have people think that we actually know things. You made your own top like 48 by 7 feet. Oh, that's awesome, Houdini. Nice. That's a big one. 48 inches deep, I feel like might be even a little bit too much. I don't know how big this one is, though. This one might be 42. I don't remember. It seems like we thought about making them 48 inches, and the problem was it put the stuff when you're sitting, it put stuff too far away if it was up, too. When you're standing, you can get to pretty much anything, but that's up to you. Build what you got. It's 2 different languages. There you go. So I got it right. Sort of, kind of, not really. All right, next thing is white, guys. Time for white. And after we do some white, we'll take a look at some whip. It is 3 o'clock. It is Whip Wednesday. If you got stuff you're working on, type exclamation point WIP in chat. Somebody do it for them, folks. Show them the way. Show them the path, the light, the directional arrow. That way you can go over to slowfusegaming.com, register up for the site if you haven't already, and it will allow you to post up pictures of what you've got going on in your daily hobby. If you're building stuff, converting stuff, painting stuff, doing terrain, whatever it is you're doing, throw it up there on slowfusegaming.com. On Whip Wednesday, we generally take 2 or 3 times during the day to take a look at what you're doing, so we'll be doing that as soon as I get some white on this cloak. And we're just using Slow Fuse Gaming, my own special white that I mix. You can buy it over on slowfusegaming.com. Hand mixed with love from Arizona. It is high-end artist titanium white with a special blend of mediums that I prefer in my paint. You can buy in a nice 17-ounce bottle. Good stuff. All right. Let's get this down again. And just like before, I want to take this white now, very, very thin, and I want to start from the shoulder again, up where I want it brightest. And just lightly bring that edge out first. Side of the brush will act kind of like a dry brushing technique. It'll just grab the high spots and miss the low. That's fine. What we're going for. Yeah, notice how it's so thin, you're never really seeing a full brush of white hit the model, right? You're never getting the feel like, oh, he's painting with white, right? Because every stroke that I do just kind of blends in. Notice how I've done this kind of lapel fold here and how it stands apart from everything around it, but not because it's just, white, right? That's not what we're going for. If I were to just paint solid, I wish that I had the way to like erase paint on a model real quick, because I would just paint for you. Like I would just take a model and paint bright white on it to show you what we're not trying to do. I feel like sometimes that's the part we miss in teaching people to paint and teaching techniques, is that we can't say, okay, here's what you do, here's what'll happen when you do it wrong, because I don't have like another model. Maybe I need another model, like a ragdoll model over here that I can just screw up all the time and repaint. That's probably that's actually a good idea now that I'm sitting here talking to myself about it. I will do that. We will come up with a model that we give two shits about, that I can paint on and immediately show you, what happens when you do it wrong. And then I can just reprime that model until it's so thick with paint we have to throw it to the dogs. How about that? Sound like a good idea? Would that help you guys? If I were to add that to the curriculum from day to day? Again, just grabbing this edge on this drape fold as it comes around the back of his waist. Very, very thin. Let that white build up with every one of your brush strokes. If it takes you 10 brush strokes to get it the way you want it, that's good, because each one of those strokes you can angle a little bit different, push it a little bit further, right, so that the paint gets on the model exactly the way you want it. And now you're starting to see how that brightness is coming about. And you can see, hopefully, from this lapel, how this is going to make this look like a white robe, even though we started with green. Lightly using the tip of the brush to pick out some of these folds as I go into the shadows here. Get this part that comes around to the knee, because the knee is the other brightest part of this from this direction of vision. That's where I want to focus next, is knee and thigh. So oh, Dathar, is it screwing up for you? If you're using the phone app, the Twitch app has been on a rant lately. It's had it's PMSing, I think. Not to be a male chauvinist when I say that, sorry. That's probably very chauvinistic to say that, right? I feel like it's having a rough day. How about that? A rough last couple of days from what everybody's been telling me. Which probably means Twitch is doing some sort of updates to the app. And maybe they're rolling them out in small bursts, and it's just having a hard time keeping up. Okay, like so. Now we're starting to see more white kick in there. Again, I don't want to push too much white in here, because the white has a very stark contrast. It makes everything darker around it. So while it will push our shadows even darker, it will overtake all of that hemp that we did. Notice how I just have hemp on this fold, white on the fold up above, and I kind of like that transition. It throws one underneath the other. I'll go in with just a hair of white on this bottom fold, right? Just a little bit to pop it a hair, but not too much, right? And so now I get this depth, right? Because of the brightness of one versus the other. Anything that's brighter is going to bring itself into the foreground. Anything that's darker is going to dump itself into the background. So even when you're looking spot on, you can tell that the fabric dips where I've got this shadow built up. So if I put too much white in there, every stroke of white brings that fabric closer out to our eye visually, even though it's not on the model, right? So you just want to make sure you leave some depth on there. Play with it, work on the rest of it, and then start bringing it back. You can already see the difference in the front that we've done here with just a little bit of white versus like how the cloak in the background looks. So we're very quickly getting towards the white that we're looking for on this gown. I'm liking it. Everywhere you get on, it's really slow, Will Vegas. Oh, even on your PC. Yeah, I don't know. Every now and then Twitch has a lot of problems. It could be that the server that you're connecting through is having issues. They don't give you the choice of what server to connect through as a viewer. As a streamer, we have to choose from like 100 different servers which one to serve through. And I'm in the Arizona one. But every now and then I have to jump to San Francisco or Dallas or LA because I'll notice that I'm dropping a lot of frames. But we're fine right now. No drop frames, nothing. Like 0.0% drop frames. Running fine at 1080. We only run at 30 frames a second though, so I apologize if you guys are having problems. Do top donator for the test fig every now and again? Poffus. So that might be funny actually. It would probably be more of a model that I would throw in as a joke in somebody's hobby gift box. It's like, hey, here, because I'll paint like a clown face on it or something. Because I can imagine having a model. What I'm talking about is having a model that I don't care about. Probably a Space Marine, because there's a million Space Marines around here that I'll never use. So probably a Space Marine model that we don't care about, and just having it to where it's, it's one of those, like I probably got one. Like this poor little guy, right, that we use for testing sometimes. But he's already got enough color on him that it's hard to test. But I could just spray over him every single time, and he could be our channel mascot. So I'll build up a Space Marine of some sort or some model, maybe a War Machine model or something, and keep a guy around that we can do that with. I think that would be funny. He'd have like clown suit colors, right? Because I can see like I'd have to like at least once a week as we switch palettes and paint other models. I'd have to prime him again. Otherwise, you can imagine, like, after this week, painting with these colors, and then next week we paint with, like, a whole different palette of colors. It would be, like, he'd start looking a little weird. It might be like, you bring him out to show what not to do, and it's just the whole model. Just don't do this. Just don't paint like this, right? Well, Vegas, I'm sorry you're having problems, brother. Try your internet connect. Are you trying to connect through the same Wi-Fi with all these devices? Because check what your Wink link is. If you can connect through your phone and it's getting bad service and not connected to the same Wi-Fi, then it's upstream of you, right? It's somewhere in the Twitch server world. But if you're connecting all those devices through like the same Wi-Fi or something, then it's your Wi-Fi. Troubleshoot that shit. Also, I don't use the Twitch app ever when I'm on the internet. That's just preference. I hate the Twitch app. I hate the way it handles chat. I always just use a browser. So that may be something that you look at too. I know on your phone that's tough because Twitch doesn't like to give you access to the full browser chat on a small mobile device. It always tries to pitch you over to Twitch Mobile. So I get that. That's a pain in the ass. Like even my big iPad, tablet, Twitch wants to put it to Twitch Mobile all the time. And I'm like, no, force it to go to the desktop view because the mobile view, the app view is horrible in most cases. I'm just grumpy about it. I don't like it. I don't like it. All right, so I'm digging that. Nice dark folds. The fabric's looking really good. I'm trying to waste time so I don't have to go paint the back of the cloak. Oh, God. At least we have the best white on the planet to do it with. Right, so, again, very, very thin. I want to grab this drape fold, and then I want to kind of lightly start getting this lower drape like we did before. Kind of doing my half moon shape. And then lightly pulling this very thin white towards this front edge with each subsequent stroke. Like so. Because again, this one now is a little tougher because not only is it lower on the model, but you got to be careful because it's the largest panel of fabric we've seen so far. All of these individual folds have all got a high point and low points in the wrinkles, so we get light and dark. This one is the first panel that we're painting so far that has more exposure to light across a broader surface. So it's very easy to think that you want to pull more white onto it, but very quickly it can have so much white that it looks brighter than all of this, even though this is higher on the model. So you have to kind of take some artist license and know that you're going to have a little bit more shadow down here than maybe you think or that your mind wants to see, because you got to push home that effect of the whole composition being brighter up top, and because we're painting white. I mean, the real reality here, the real reality, is that the thing? The reality here is that we are, we're painting with the brightest color, and so in order to make it come to life, we have to be a little careful with it. You got to use it sparingly. You got to know when to quit, when to dump a little bit more on, right? You got to know when to hold them. Why did I just think of the Gambler? Literally, the first thing that comes to mind is a Kenny Rogers song. I feel like I'm doomed. I feel like you should probably sell your stocks. Hell's freezing over. Slow Fuse thought of the Gambler as the first thing during this conversation. All right, so like so. Feel like that's probably getting pretty good. I don't know that we'll put too much else on there, right? So I've got to leave this bottom panel, even though it wouldn't necessarily be in this much shadow. We've got to let that hemp take over and do its work down here. Otherwise, we get too bright. Close up these awkward kind of shadow spots on the hem here. So liking that. That's looking pretty good. Same thing down here on the front. Don't want a whole lot of white, but we still got to sell it as being white. We don't want to sell it as like the inside's two-tone or something. So just very, very lightly. Notice how I didn't go back over to the palette for this. I'm painting with whatever's left on my brush after doing the other side of the cloth. So there's not a lot of white left on here. So it takes a lot more strokes. It's going to be a lot less opaque, a lot more transparency as I dump it on there, which is going to make it not pop near as much as that side, but still sell it as dirty white. Did we lose everybody? Can somebody in chat, because chat just kind of died. Somebody in chat say if it's still up. Did it fail for everybody? Are we still on? Is this thing on? Hello? Somebody? Somebody? Houdini7 says monkey smiles. So I'm assuming we're still on. Still working. People just getting quiet. All right. Keep moving. White on the top of these folds. Remember how before we were just working the center? Same thing here. We just kind of want to work the center of these folds lightly as they go off into the shadow under the arm and then the bunching that happens up in here, right? So just like that. Very, very simple on that part. This part up under the underarm, again, a little brighter right here towards the front of these folds. And then we want it to go into shadow as it drops off under the arm there. Like so. Notice how I catch that edge. I'm just going and getting a little bit of white right on the edge of that so that I get a darkness pinching on the cloth. So it gives me that bunching of cloth feel, even though that's not in the sculpt. right? So that's just you as an artist saying, okay, well, if I just paint this white, it'll just be a flat panel. So I just went in on the edge and then skip a space and come down, and now I get the feel of there being another fold there, even though the sculpt mine doesn't have anything there that does that. So gives you a little latitude to play with it and give texture and feel onto the model. Good. Let's get this little back area as it swings around his hips. And like we said, not a lot of white necessary here. We just want to sell it as being part of the cloak. Just a little bit on the top of those folds. And then if you can get your brush in there, if you can nab just a pinch of white on these lower folds. Good. Just a little bit, right? Keep them in shadow. That looks good. I'm digging it. Got this side piece down low that looks like we didn't do any hemp on, so I have to come back and fix that. Notice how we've got the side of the robe right down here where it looks black. I need to fix that real quick, so we got to hit that with some hemp. Some hemp and some mix. This is just raw hemp going on over our dark green down there at the base. That back to where we painted it white up front, just kind of blend that in. Now we want a little bit of mix of the hemp and the white that we were doing before. Again, leaving a little shadow all around it, just kind of painting the middle section of this fold. Bring very, very thin line of the mix down like that. Again, blend it back over here into our section that's white, so we get a little bit of that brightness. Back over here. Now just straight to white. Easy fix for my laziness and missing it the first go around. Again, just pinch that white in even smaller. Keep that shadow running. The line of white right down the middle. Bingo. That's all you need. Dunzos. Alright, I gotta get the inside in between the legs there real quick before we move to the back cloak. Here we want to make sure we're very, very thin with our white. So err on the side of being too thin, like I'm still too thick as a matter of fact. Too much paint. That's better. Most of the paint's off of the brush, and again I'm just coming from like maybe a quarter of the way, a third of the way up towards the crotch area and pulling my brush strokes down to that edge, blending as I go. Not really any folds in it down here, so there's no details to really pick up on. You're just blending across a big flat area. Be careful as you run. Like so. Letter. In. One more layer out towards the edge, really sell that it's white up in there. Now we gotta do the scary stuff. Get this done, we'll do some whip. I go very thin on this cloak, just like we did the first time. Again, just start up here, coming out of the shade of the helmet. I'll start a little bit further away from the helmet now, though. Right, with the light green, we started kind of right up underneath. Now with the white, we're kind of starting right here, leaving about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or so. A couple millimeters. So that the light green hemp kind of mixture is visible there first. That gives us a nice transition as we go into that shadow. Maintains that nice shade as it goes up underneath into the neck area. All right, then we'll take it again. Again, using the side of the brush, just trace that edge like we've done so many times before. And now we're not going to come all the way across. We're going to keep the side of the brush. We're going to pull some white onto that edge. Probably just keep that panel highlighted. And we'll come a little bit further this way. And down to this corner. With white, you definitely don't want to overwork it. You want to leave it alone, let it set up and dry. Because when white tears, it's so much more visible that something's going wrong with the paint, right? The more you move white around on the model, the more you get that kind of cloudy, gross look underneath it. Just let it set up before you come back too wet over the top so it doesn't pull and stretch on you and then finally crack and show you what's underneath. Because it'll open up and reveal that dark green underneath and be really shitty. Kind of blending from that edge. A little bit of triangular pattern as we come down to these bigger parts of the fold. It just kind of rides that edge. You just want to blend it, and then it dips into the shadow there, which is fine. You get a nice smooth transition. Over here we'll have to work on it a little bit more. I'm just real wet on this surface, so I don't want to go and throw a whole lot more paint right there right now. So we'll move on to the next fold. And trust me, if you guys are out there doing this along with me, white is frustrating, so don't let yourself fall into the trap of getting overly frustrated. Just work thinner. You got to walk away from it for a second. Walk away from it. White and black, some of the most frustrating colors for us to paint in miniature. If you find yourself hating white, I would say go to the store, spend the $3.50, buy yourself a bottle of my white. It will help you a lot, as you can see. Doesn't tear as easy. Works really, really well. Then doesn't streak as bad as other whites. Doesn't get all chalky texture. Come back now that I've left this front piece alone for a minute and just put a little bit of very, very wet white on there. It might be too wet. I'm gonna leave it alone for a minute. That was a little wet. All right, but you can see it's going on nice and smooth. We're starting to break out those shadows really nice on the cloak, but we're selling that it's white as opposed to green or parchment color, right? Because you have the fear if you don't layer this up right, if you leave too much of your dark green showing, don't use enough hemp, don't mix your hemp and white well enough, then you start to see how this could, be more like a parchment cloth rather than stark white that we're going for. We're just going for a dirty white. is the end game here. Again, I'm only really attacking this with white from about 2/3 of the way down so that I get that shadow at the axe accentuated. So Drago, you thought you had said the cloak is green. It looks very gray. You're going insane with what you're hearing. You thought you said the cloak is green. The cloak is not green. The cloak is meant to be white, right? The cloak started as green, right? This whole thing started as dark green RLM, which is a very yellowy dark green. Then we went to hemp, which is a greenish, kind of tan with a little bit of yellow in it. Then we started mixing the hemp with the white, and then finally to white, right? And so when we take all that out, you see we get a very nice white. It's not gray. It has that greenish gray feel to it that gives us that dirty feel, right? Which is what we were going for, right? I don't like, on models like this, that you can imagine he's in the sand and in the arena all the time. I didn't want this guy to be something that was, bright, starched white. Didn't make sense to me. The picture on the model's front on the box has it more of a starched white, a real bright, crisp white. And to me, that didn't make sense. So I wanted a white that, pulled the tone and the hue of the model in, the way that we're doing the dirty gold on the armor, dirty bronze on the armor, or whatever. And so normally I would choose to use brown. We talked about this the other day. In most of the situations, if I chose to do white, and this was the story I was trying to tell, was this dirty white, I would go into tans and browns as my base coat. But because we have so much brown working on this model, exposed skin everywhere, and then the golden armor that also rests in that kind of yellow-brown world, you don't want to pull the same hues in on your workup for, any other color, like white, or even if you were doing reds, you might try to find a way to do your reds with a purple backdrop as opposed to a brown backdrop, just so you don't wind up with too much brown on the model. Make sense? So that's why we chose green. We have a green hue on the gold, or bronze on the model, right? We tarnished it with a little bit of green. So you'll see like back here where the tarnish on the arm goes into that green, right? So it doesn't feel awkward on the model, but if I use brown, then like right here where I have this nice shine line on my armor on the back, I wouldn't get that because I would, but it would look strange if then the fold of the white was also in the world of browns. Now with it in the world of greens, and it does, like you said, it turns kind of a grayish and it stands out apart from the armor. So I get to separate everything in the form of detail and texture on the model, but I still have everything remain in the same kind of hue grouping. I'm not going in and, doing blue as the backdrop for white, which doesn't really make sense on this model. It makes the white look too clean and crisp. So it doesn't satisfy what, the goal was. So anytime I'm painting whites, especially, light grays, anything that goes into this kind of neutral arena of color, I want to make sure that I'm matching my undercoats with the rest of the model as best I can, so that I get a good feel, staying as hue neutral as possible. That makes sense? Rather than bringing in, at least on a model like this, there's cause where you would say, no, screw that, I want to have this be, like a blue gray undertone for my white, and there would be a good reason for it, and you could sell that given a particular story you were trying to tell with a model. With this guy, dirty gladiator ring, that kind of stuff, nah, we just want it to get to that level of kind of grimy white. Pushing a little bit more white up into the folds. Get this side over here, it's had some time to dry. A little bit more white up here onto the shoulder area, and as it drapes down into a little bit of shadow here as it folds. but not too much. I want to catch this front edge, so I'm going to use the side of the brush, pull right along that edge, always taking my stroke all the way to the end here on the cape, and then again right through here. There we go. I let that white set up enough now to where it's not wanting to peel as I paint more over it. Just a weird texture on that, so it hinders us a little bit, but that's looking pretty good. That's Bella. Bella barking in the background. Don't know if you guys can hear that or not. Doge. Might be the greenish gray dirty and shadows that you heard then. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what we're trying to create. And so you have to ask yourself, like there's plenty of reasons where, or plenty of spots where you would choose to use gray as the background for white. You could go in with black gray, gray, light gray, white. You can make that look dirty, but it depends on what's the hue on the rest of the model. Is the rest of the model browns and golds and greens like this? Then I feel like putting the gray on it is not hue neutral enough to the model. Yes, gray is neutral. Yes, white is neutral. So you would think, well, it's neutral colors, so how can it not be hue neutral? But my definition of hue neutral is in the whole composition. You can take a neutral hue, which is not hue neutral to the composition you're putting it in, if you understand that, right? So I'm putting it into a composition that is mostly yellows, greens, browns, and a little bit of reds in the skin tone through pinks. And so within that, I wanted to pick the green because the green base for white stays hue neutral to the model. I have some greens, even though they're not the same greens. I have some browns, so you know the hemp plays well with the browns and the gold. It's hue neutral to the gold. It doesn't intrude too much on the gold. It doesn't intrude too much on the skin, right? So it's hue neutral to the model's composition. The green that I use, or the dark green, again, it doesn't intrude too much on the gold. It doesn't intrude too much on the skin, given that we glaze a little bit of cam dark green on the skin. The skin's even got a little bit of green in the shadows, right? It doesn't intrude too much on any of the colors, so it stays hue neutral on the composition. And then white, of course, is going to be neutral to everything. You can use white with anything and get away with it, depending on how much you put. But the basis for it, you want to make it dirty. If I did blue, blue is very different to everything on the model as what we've chosen, so it wouldn't have stayed that hue neutral that I wanted. It would have taken it too cool, not the story I'm trying to tell. Could you? Sure. You know, maybe you're doing a 40K model or an Age of Sigmar model, and those colors can then work really well. For something like this, where it's more of a historic, gladiatorial thing, I have a little bit more realism that we're working up in these. And so that's why I choose to do it this way. You just have to decide what your story is and then follow it. And then if you've picked a story you want to go with, pick the colors all along the process that help you stick to that story and the composition, so that you're not finding, like maybe you're comfortable painting your whites with an undertone of blue all the time. That's just the way you do it. So when you choose white to do his robe, you just start doing it with blue. And then at the end of the model, you're like, right? Because it doesn't feel as good as maybe your whites normally do because of the story you chose. So you have to be able to, extend outside of your comfort barrier sometimes and pick colors as your base, or glazing or shadows or whatever it is that you're doing that aren't, necessarily what you use all the time. Like I don't paint a lot of white up from green, It's not something that you normally would have to do. Like I said, if you're going for dirty white, brown is your best bet most of the time. There's just already too much brown on this model. So then I start getting muddy and monotonous, right? Brown would be hue neutral for the composition, but it would not add enough to it, right? It would start making all of it look the same. That's just that kind of OCD color picking mentality that you have to have as you get to the point where you're trying to make models, look different, from model to model that you're painting, so that you don't get burnt out, and also so that you've got something fresh to look at all the time. All right, just grabbing the peak of the folds as it dips in there, and then on these shadowed folds down here, I just want to make sure I pull some white to the edge that comes up underneath. So I'm kind of making that triangular shape, right? Coming out of the white on this top fold here, and then just light strokes to the edge and then finally faded away to nothing. Right, so I get that nice curvature there. And same thing on this one. I think, yeah, right back here where we had a little bit of that goof up because we had to come back and redo that back edge. I just want to redefine some of this with a little bit of white blending here. There you go. Go ahead and keep layering up right here on this top fold on the cape too, because that's going to be pretty bright. Just so I get this area right here to pop pretty bright. It's going to be some of the brightest fabric on it. Now that's looking pretty good. I'm happy with this. Bingo. Now we got white robes out of green. And it sits well on the model. It gives us a nice gritty, kind of dirty fabric without looking too bad. You know, we could go in and you could bring the earth color when we do the base. We could bring some of those colors up here if you wanted to make it look like he'd fallen and, you know, had the dust from the Colosseum on his robe too. We're not to that point. But you can make it look even dirtier if you want. I'm happy with it right now though. I'm happy with the way that the dirt kind of comes into it in the mind without having to be visual dirt on the model, right? It's just because of the dirty, gritty kind of green that we got laying in here. I feel like I want a little bit more white right in here. There's a flat area in this fold right here, right there, that was just a little too dark and was bothering me. Yeah, right like that. Areas that I've been doing in the shadows, I want to see a little bit more white out of them so they don't look quite so dingy gray. Layer a little bit more up in here. On here. That gets it. Bingo. This is fucking with me right here. There's a texture to the model right here that's screwing with me. There we go. I reverse my brush stroke. Pick up all those dark spots in the model.
Why don't you donate $5
Mucho
to the
better.
cause and
I like
maybe
it.
it'll make you feel better.
Neo Demon Hawk, $10. Holy hell, my friend. Thank you so much. We are giving away this model, by the way. I don't know if you guys follow me on Facebook. I didn't even mention it today. I'm being a stooge. So we're giving away the last of these uncompleted models. We've got one more ready to go out, so it's open for anybody at the end of the stream. Stick around. We'll be giving that away in addition to any other giveaways we have. But if you did not get a chance to get your hands on one for the paint-along, we've got one left, and it'll be going home to some lucky winner tonight. No entry fee required, no thing to balance out, nothing. We'll ship it to you. So that'll be cool. I'm liking him, though. He's starting to fit in with the rest of the group. I think we're going to do the leather straps in the front. We're going to do those as red. We've got a little bit of red leather on the rest of the crew here, right, that we've been choosing as a color, the red drape cloth. So I'm going to do the leather here as a very dark brownish red coming out of mahogany for the leather strapping on his waist skirt. So we'll do that in red. We'll come back and start that after we take a look at some whip. What say you? I'm digging it. And see, that's the same kind of way that we did the whites on this guy and this guy as well, but we didn't drive these guys to being so clean. These have got even more of the dark green peeking through to give it even a dirtier, dull look to the white than our cloak here. Right? So you can still, just by adding a little bit more white, get, you know, to the level where you're like, you know, maybe he's more important than this guy, so you want to paint it brighter. You can use the same steps that we've used. Just keep bringing more layers of white onto it, thin, right? Not opaque, and just build up, build up, build up so you get brighter whites, and he'll look a little crisper and cleaner than the rest of the squad does, just by virtue of that. So, looking pretty good. I dig it. Got what? Slow fuse gave gray metals a quick what? What? Gave gray metals a quick try. Oh, the question mark is a mistake, right? You gave gray metals a quick try. Seems harder than yellows without you holding my hand. Yeah, silver metallics are different, right? As much as it seems odd to say they're different than doing the golds. Just because of the way you work from your dark color to your light color is a little bit different. So you just got to take that into account. But we'll be doing a lot of silver non-metallics. So you'll be able to catch into that. Faux show. Armin's, what's going on, man? For the Model Masters lusterless flat, how many times do you spray that on? Because it doesn't seem like you sprayed it on. It doesn't seem like you sprayed it on. So you used it and it doesn't seem like you used it? Because I put 2 coats minimum. So I will spray it on every, you know, I usually take a piece of wood outside and I'll lay it down with a model on it. I'll spray, then I'll rotate it, spray, rotate it, spray. Usually at least 3 angles to get the model completely coated. Then I'll let it dry. Then I'll come back and spray it from 3 angles again, and then I'm usually done. 2 coats is fine for me. I can't guarantee that that's the same for everyone, but I feel like I've been using it for about 20 years and it's always been the same, so. All right, let's take a look at some whip. Throw your progress on your models up over at slowfusegaming.com. We'll take a look at it starting in just a few seconds. Gotta refresh, gotta figure out where to start from. Good God, computer. Anything with a scroll wheel hates me on this computer. It's the mouse. I think it's because we have 2 mice hooked up, actually. I wonder if I disconnected the other mouse during the stream, when we're not using the one in the game room, if that would help. I don't know. I don't know. All right, not a lot to look at here yet. Let's take a look at this. Subgenius, bases made for your Malifaux League with Happy Seppuku molds. Fan-freaking-tastic, man. Oh, hell yeah, man. These are looking great. You got a ton made. I love it. You got your steel decking, fish scale brick, herringbone brick, planks, cobble. Awesome. The slate, I love the slate ones. They're awesome. The cobblestone's really good, too. Hell yeah, man. These are looking great, dude. That's a lot of base. All the base. I dig it. Good work, man. Great work. We do these Happy Seppuku bases over at the store. They're just rubber stamps that you can use with the clay to get amazing bases every time. The molds themselves for the Happy Seppuku stamps are deep enough that they give really nice, consistent stamping, as long as you've got the wherewithal to make them every time. Don't go in with too heavy a hand. It's awesome. Very nice. All right, Studio 77 painting, 1 of 3 working my way through the vids. Oh, hell yeah, man. I was wondering if you were going to get around to showing us some stuff. There's a lot of people that have been painting or that got the model for Paint Along that have not been able to join us live, that are watching the VODs and then posting up after it gets done. That's why I'm going to reach out to everybody at the end of the day or the end of the week, and as people finish, we're going to place all of these in a separate gallery for all of our painting. All of our Paint-Alongs will have a separate gallery on the website, so we can show historically the people's progress as they've gone along. So each individual will have their own little gallery for their models, so that should be pretty cool. I'm liking this a lot. Sideways picture, but obviously your flesh is looking spot on, man. Like spot on, you've nailed it. Nice pink right in here along the muscle ridge. Nice shadows coming in out of the underarm. Yeah, great flesh tones here, Studio 77. Nailing it. That's awesome. Good to see. Yeah, again, I'm loving it. Coming out of the shadow, the pink on the knee, running down the shin, right here on the arm and the hand. Yeah, you've nailed your skin tones, man. Hopefully that was good work for you. You ought to be proud of that. I dig it. Looks really, really good. I love it. Lighter around the knuckles, but still got some pink in the fingers. Everything's done right there, man. Awesome. Yep, little brightness. Dull the skin out here on the top of the knee. Again, good pink and shadow underneath the bicep on yours. Nice. Neck looks really good. Lots of blood in the neckline. I dig it. Nailed it, man. Great work. Great work on the flesh. Again, these are all the viewers that got this model ahead of time. Every time we release one of these paint-along models, we let everybody know, so make sure you follow us on Facebook. That's generally where the announcement will go out first, so follow us, Slow Fuse Gaming, on Facebook. Then you can know when to jump over to the store and buy the model, or buy the model locally. We don't care if you buy it from us. We'll just announce what the model is and what our colors are that we're going to be using. We announced the full set of colors that we haven't deviated from, that we posted up on the web, so it gives you an idea of, you know, how to accentuate your paints on your end, even if you don't want to paint the same model we're painting, but you want to paint something that's armored and cloth, and, you know, whether it's a Space Marine or whatever, you just want to use the same colors and learn the same techniques. We'll announce it up there, and these guys have been doing an absolutely fantastic job of following along. Ray Silver, actually doing the silver. As I'm looking at this, there's nothing really bad about this. This looks like hammered iron, right? So this is a nice iron kind of plate right here. It's not steel, right? Like I was saying, with gray metals, you really only have two ends of the spectrum. You've got the steel and aluminum that go where it's bright. Steel can kind of fall in to be a little bit grayer and not be as bright. Aluminum generally more bright, right? So you use more light grays and whites if what you're trying to sell is aluminum or chrome. But for steel, you know, you're still going to want less dark on the model, except for your reflection lines. You're not going to have as much shading like you do with yellow metals and the dull, like the copper and bronze that we've been painting. But you've nailed it. I love what you've come up with, because it looks like, you know, an iron, you know, like a medieval iron shoulder to me, right? So I don't know that I can say change a lot unless you just want it to be more steel, more bright steel. And in that case, you need less of your dark gray showing, more of the mid-tone gray showing, and then use your light gray as your saturation highlight, right? So just like you did on the bronze down here, you're going to want less of the darkest color showing. It only really shows around the band of the wrist and right up here at the elbow, and then a little bit on the back of the arm that we can't see on this. Same with the helmet, right? Less dark, except in the most shadowed areas that we've got, right? And so here, what you've got is a lot of dark sitting out on the top of the shoulder, where it wouldn't necessarily be dark unless the metal itself was dark like iron. Iron's not as reflective. If it's just hammered iron, it's only going to reflect where the indentions are. It's going to have some neat texture to it. But then you've got this nice saturation here that sells it as being dark metal. You know, just that raw iron that is much more into that shadowy kind of color. The more you want to brighten this up, you just got to bring your mid-tone gray into this area and only have your dark gray kind of up in the cresting, like right here as it pinches into the guard side, and down low like you've got it here. And more of, you can leave like this line dark gray that you've got, because that's a good reflection spot right there. But then you'd want mid-tone gray kind of everywhere else, and then use your bright gray as a spot highlight to saturate. That's the only thing you'd have to do differently here, right? Again, another angle. Yeah, see, this is good hard surfacing, right? You've got a good hard surface painted here. It's just you've gone dark, right? And so this is not going to sell itself as steel. It's going to look like iron, which is not bad, right? Considering I don't think the Greco-Romans had steel. Did they? I think they had iron. I don't know if they had steel. So someone else would have to, somebody smarter than me would have to tell me this. I think this is Bronze Age stuff, but I don't know. I don't know. I dig it though. Just lighten it up a little bit and you'll get towards steel pretty quick. Let your dark spots act as reflections, as opposed to here where the dark spots are so broad that they act as the color of the material that you're painting on. Airbrush finished. Not for detailing? I assume now for detailing. I love this airbrush. This is looking really, really good, man. Really good. Yeah, using that brown as a base to come up into this kind of bone ivory color is fantastic, right? We just did this on a Marine, and this is looking really, really good. I love it. Nice and subtle, only allowing the brown to stick into the dirtiest parts, right around like all of the finger grooves, everything. Yeah, your airbrush control is working really, really well for you there. Yep. We spent some time on a one-on-one tutorial getting through how to get this and sell it as that kind of bone ivory that you would want for Deathwing. for the Dark Angels. And I think that doing this and having that brown and just however much brown you leave gives it a little bit more dirty feel. You've done it, man. You've nailed it, right? I love these transitions. Little dark on the hand here, but I still like it a lot, right? This might, once you start getting your other colors on the model, you might find that you want to brighten this up a bit because as it falls into this dark brown, might give it too much of a brown feel. But other than that, everything else looks great, right? Because all of these areas will be metallic, right? So everywhere where I see that needs color looks fantastic. Maybe just a little dark on the hand, but I don't know. You might be doing something different with this part of the hand. This might be going green or something like that. So that's up to you. Great job with the airbrush, though. Looking fantastic. That's right, the sarcophagus thing opens up. I dig this. Yep. This is a great model. I need to paint one of these. Snipe doing awesome work. Yeah, I think you're going to love this, man, because you've got this nice dirty streakiness to it just by allowing some of that brown to show through. You're not having to do a lot of crazy effects to this. You already have that effect built in from building up from, you know, like an umber and then a brown and then into the bones and all of that. Just where you choose to leave those darker browns and spottiness can give you all the weathering you need so that your life at the end of the model is much, much easier. Right? Love it. Great color workup. I would say you nailed it. Right? I think that is the definition of quote-unquote nailing it. Good stuff. Let's do a refresh before we jump back into our Tribune. Again, just type !whip in chat. It'll shoot you over to slowfusegaming.com where you can post up what you've got going on. Here we go. Some more Tribune stuff. Looks like Houdini. Yeah, Houdini. I'm digging it. I can feel it. A little bright as you came across this line, right? Remember, the sculpt has got right here, right, a spot on it that allows you that visual cue of then not quite as dark down here. So you might want to take a little bit of your dark green, I would say, and maybe glaze a little bit of dark green back in here to catch this area inside, right? And then maybe work it back over with a little bit of hemp and white. But again, I'll trust you on your side. This could also be the camera saturating because I can tell that you got a little bit of shadow here. So if it's just the picture, then stick with it because I like your whites a lot, right? But I feel like you could have left a little bit of the mid-tone hemp and the dark green in some of these folds up top. Looks like you went a little heavy and got white a little deep in there. Just go with a little bit lighter hand so that you pick out the tops and blend down just enough, but still keep these dark folds, right? But yeah, it's looking really good. White is not easy, not in the least. Max Payne, Blood Raven's Reaver, work in progress. I'm digging it, Max. This is looking really good. I love the reds. They're looking really sharp. All your fades are selling nice. Not overly dark anywhere, not overly bright anywhere. Just a really good color and work up on the red. And you can't go wrong with these colors, right? I mean, come on. The Blood Raven red and the black and the white and a skull mask. Unfortunately, this reminds me of those damn bandanas that some guys on motorcycles wear that have the skulls on it. So there's something about it that when I look at it, I'm like, but I love the model. I'm not gonna lie, I love the model. It's just a little weird. It's just my brain every time I see it the first time, I'm like, oh, that guy, you know? It's the guy that like sells insurance during the week and then goes and tries to be a hard ass on the weekend. It's that guy. That's who that guy is. Assassin Red, starting to work on skin. Hell yeah, man. Got your work cut out for you, don't you? This is Assassin Red got some of the Nasir models from Wrath of Kings from us, and they're great, but lots of skin on them, right? Lots of skin and like metal pasties. I like it though, good start. Using your pre-highlight, going very, very light with your first coverage of skin is gonna give you nice dark shades. You see it here as it drops down to her crotch, the thigh area, under the boob. You got really good shadows going on here. Just as you work, make sure you don't push too much highlight into those shade areas at first. You know, focus on the top of the thigh, outside of the hip, top of the breast. The way her back is arched, you can go through the side of the breast too. The camera is telling you a lot right here, right? Because you've got that shine on the side of the breast, but then a deep shadow underneath the cleft. Keep that. So keep looking back at this picture because it'll tell you everything you need to do. right? But good work so far with painting thin over your pre-highlight. That's going to work really well. Oh my God, my scroll wheel goes down when I want it to go up. It goes up when I want it to go down. Holy hell. Wearing stuff on motorcycles. There's a guy in your area who has a Predator mask. He puts over his motorcycle helmet. It looks so amazing. I've seen pictures of guys and girls that do that. I'm not going to lie. Some of those masks are pretty cool. I would never wear anything like that when riding a motorcycle. There's a reason why motorcycle helmets are smooth. Trust me. When the first time you bang your head off the ground while being on a motorcycle, you will be happy that you don't have spikes and doohickeys hanging off that grab the ground and twist your neck off. Houdini 7 and Twitch fail. Is it failing for a lot of people? I feel like a lot of people have been talking about how Twitch is having issues. That really sucks, man. Yeah, I feel like we're light on viewers too. We're down under 100. I bet a bunch of people have had to ditch because their Twitch isn't working. Thanks, Twitch. Much appreciated. That sucks. Ray, okay, yeah, if you're looking to sell iron, then you nailed it, man. That dark metal is working great. Max Payne, your Blood Raven look great. Eskimo Force, all right, cool. So at least it's not affecting everybody. Good. I'm sorry for those guys that are having problems with Twitch today. I don't know what it could be. I wonder if it's like a certain section of the states is having problems due to weather or something, maybe. Yeah, Max, your Blood Raven looked good. I told you that the reds were nice and smooth. Your light to dark on the reds was really, really good. You didn't have spots where it showed as too bright, spots that showed as too dark. Look great. Look great. Greenleaf Terrain, why am I so bad at painting? You know, I'm old. I'm old. Kind of sucks to have to show you guys my shitty work, right? I'm still brave enough to put my shitty work out on the internet for everybody to see, though. So I do have that going for me. Greenleaf, you bastard, how you been? All right, so let's put the other dudes aside and let's do some red. So in the color list for this guy, I just said pick what you like for red because we're going to do some red. You could do this as leather browns if you wanted. What we're going to be working on is the skirt, right? The leather strip of the skirt. So I'm going to choose to do red on mine. You could choose to do leather brown. It really doesn't matter. Pick a color that you like. You could do blue. Because I chose red, that's why I had the rest of these guys out here. I chose red as my accent color for like the belt and loincloth kind of feel for these guys, and just little accents in red up to kind of a, I think Mars red, kind of an orangey red top on the fabric. I'm going to stick to reds, but I'm not going to go as bright with the reds on him because the rest of these guys, it's like cloth on there that's red. And so on him, I want it to be leather. So I'm going to have it hang back a little bit darker. So we're going to use mahogany, of course. Why wouldn't we? I mean, geez, who doesn't use mahogany? So mahogany, which is also back in stock in the store, by the way. Just saying. You cannot connect to Twitch video. You're using third-party chat program, Thaddeus. That sucks. Eskimo Force, thank you so much, man. That sucks. I'm just going to type something in here so anybody that can't actually see us or hear us. Yeah, just keep trying to refresh because everything's here is cool here. Normally, if there were problems globally through Twitch, I would see some drop frames because their servers wouldn't be communicating back and forth correctly. But as far as it looks on me, we're perfectly fine. 0.0%. So that sucks. It sucks. I did start with mahogany as the base for all of my reds here. I just covered up most of the mahogany very quickly. You can just get a little bit of shadowing that you see like at the base of the cloth on him. Things like that. I haven't dull coated these guys, so it's still a little bit shiny. But it'll be the same color workup that I used on the rest of them. I'm just not going to go as bright. Or at least that's my thought right now. Like I always say, don't ever say never when you're painting, because you might find that as you start laying color on, you're going to be like, I'm going to keep this red really dull. But as you start putting it on and it start brightens up, it might look really cool against the white and everything. So we'll see. We'll see. I've been doing really good because I laid these colors out that we were going to be using like, a month ago or something. And that's really hard for me, to lay out a list of colors and say, okay, this is what we're painting this model with, and then not change any of them. Like, I haven't changed any of them, and I'm pretty proud of myself for that. Normally, I would come in and I'd be like, I was thinking this would be cool to do red, but now that I'm looking at it, I feel like maybe, and then I change it all. But I can't, because people are relying on this paint along, right? They've already got their colors figured out, so it's good. It's kept me honest. Right? So first thing we want to do is just base coat. Nothing spectacular here. Just get whatever you're using. If you're using browns and you want to work up to leather browns, then you might want to use like a chocolate brown, black brown, whatever. For me, mahogany. Doesn't matter. This is pretty simple. No special tech needed here. This is just going to be more practice for you working thin. Even with my base coat, I go very thin so that my black undercoat gives me that shadow that I'm looking for. Right, so even as I'm laying mahogany on here, it's very, very thin so that I get to keep my shade. Even though we didn't pre-highlight, I want that black to do work for me. Like up around, the hemline of the robe, I just don't put as much. I don't go with a second layer of mahogany up there so that black will shade through. And then I just keep going on to the tips of each of these straps. Right, so I'll pick them from like 2/3 of the way up and continue to just drag mahogany down, but leave less area up around the hem with any mahogany on it. Still has a little bit, but wrong direction. Wrong direction. All right. Real simple. After it sets up a little, by the time you go clean your brush, come back over, now you can start doing a little bit more. Go maybe halfway down each strip and do another layer of mahogany. This one color, because we're painting it so thin and we're painting it over black, can act like its first set of highlights just over itself. Because the more we layer, the closer we get to the red of mahogany, and the less we look like the dark black brown that's up here in the shadows. Just keep layering, move further away from where you want it dark, closer just to the edge. And one color can do a lot of heavy lifting for you. Just by doing that. Feel like that is part of his leg, actually, that we didn't paint. So we're gonna have to fix that, because that I thought was part of the skirt. See this little black area between his thumb that is framed by his thumb and the cloth and then the skirt front? That's leg. That's leg. That's not part of the sculpt of the skirt thing, so I misjudged that. I'm gonna have to come back and fix that and get some flesh in there. We'll do that after we do this red. Yeah, that'll be fun. Sneaking flesh color up in there, but I'm not gonna fix it right now. Keep bringing that mahogany, brightening up the edges of this. Right, you can see how you keep a little bit of darkness up top and more red starts popping out down below. I don't think there's any more of this visible anywhere, so it's literally just right here on the front. All right, that's easy. Easy peasy. So now we're gonna move to red RLM. Our favorite red, just red. Red is red is red. Red RLM. We're gonna mix this a little bit with the mahogany for our first stage, although, yeah, we'll mix it. We'll do a 50-50 mix of this and red, or this and mahogany first. I generally, when I'm working up reds, I only use mahogany in this red. Every now and then I'll bust out with a different red, maybe, but generally I can get what I need out of these two colors. Because I'll do exactly what I'm about to do here. I'll mix them together and get kind of a mid-tone between the two. 50-50 red and mahogany. It'll give me a nice, dirty, brownish red that leans more towards red than the mahogany did, obviously. that, we just want to start catching these areas down low. So I will come from about 2/3 of the way on each strap down to the bottom with this color. Start about there, bring it all the way down to the bottom. Little spot up here. Bottom spot. Some of them cross over one another, so you just got to kind of estimate, because you're not going to get to paint the whole strap. You just get a little vision of it up high and then a vision of it down low. Again, this is a 50-50 blend of red and mahogany that I'm doing right now. Key is just don't paint the whole strap. Leave yourself a part of the strap up high that stays dark. Painting, say, the bottom 2/3 of each strap. The visible bottom 2/3. And just like before, as I layer up more, I'll just come down further. So I won't paint the whole 2/3 the next stroke. I'll come down and only paint half. I'm always building up paint, smaller and smaller areas, leaving the blend behind to give me that transition, right? So notice how now I've got a nice transition from darker reds up here where it's just the mahogany laid over the black, to areas where I have the first layer of mix over mahogany, to down low where it gets brighter as I get, to the full mix and none of the mahogany showing anymore, except in little slight areas, the shadows. Real simple. This is gonna go quick. I thought this was on the back too. All right, now I'm gonna go pure red. Really thin, pure red, no mix. See how thin that is? It just turns pink when I put it over my white part of my thumb there. And here I'll start about halfway through each strap as opposed to 2/3. But again, just paint from halfway down to the bottom. Very, very thin, so it's allowing that last layer to show through a little bit. A little bit more on this one because this strap up here kind of folds towards the sky, so get the top of it too. Less and less paint as I go. Each layer, paint closer towards the bottom. Don't take the paint up so high. And now, even brighter down below, it darkens up the leather up top. Bingo, super simple, easy to do. Great way to work stuff up. Finally, I want to take a little bit of an orangey red, which I want to say is this one, Mars Red. A little bit of Mars Red from Army Painter. A little bit of orangey red. There's obviously Vallejo colors that would work as well. I think, what is it called? Burning red. I don't remember what the hell the reds are. But I'm going to use Mars Red. It's still got a good enough red base, but it's got enough orange to it that it should pop and be able to give us a little bit of edging. Because what we want to do is pick out a little bit of the edge, since this is a hard surface on the leather. Or we're going to treat it like it is, at least. Right? See, so it's like a very burnt orange. I'm going to take this, very carefully run it up the edge. On the straps. You can barely even see that. I've chosen the right side edge. You can choose whatever you want. I'm just going to the right. Even up there in the shadow. Hold on, let me back out a little bit. Feel like I'm blurring you guys when I get my hand in there. the right edge of these guys a little bit. A little bit of brightness. I don't want to make it too shiny, so that's why I'm not adding like white to my red. I don't want to go into the pink end of the spectrum. Just want a little bit of glow on the outer edge here. I'm going to switch over to the left edge. These. Just the tip. This little piece sticking out by his knee here. After you work that up enough, notice how I'm still painting very thin, so I still have to layer this to get it the way I want to, but after you work it up enough, shine can stop showing up there. You'll get the very, very faint shine that goes along the edge of each strap now, right? Very faint, not like a edge highlight like we would do on metal, right? But just very faint. So I just got a little bit of orange buildup on the outside of that strap. Outside of that strap, a little bit at the tip, outside of that one, a little bit on the outside of that one up in the shadows there. Just gives it a little variation of color. I don't want to go too bright, right? I could, and if you want to, you can. If you feel like you want to pop a little bit more contrast, you can go with a brighter edge. I'm just trying to keep it as dull leather is the goal. All right, we can be done with that. That looks good. I like it. And I think a little bit, we got to figure out this thing, right? Somebody was saying like there's rules, like the plume is supposed to be a color, right? On this box art, it's gold, like it's yellowy brown. I feel like yellowy brown doesn't do anything for us. Can we do it blue? Is that cool? Is blue a thing? Because I would really like to see blue on the crest. I've used blue because they, on their box models, use blue for these harnesses on some of the other fighters. So I really like the way the blue peaks. I would really like to do blue on this plume unless somebody's going to yell at me and say, the freaking Tribune would ever have blue. Red and whites were the main color, Snipe. We stream on Cox, Stadius. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you can hear. Greenleaf Terrain, no tattoos on him? I don't think that was a thing. Blue would look cool, but it's totally not the Roman scheme. Red and whites are the main colors. Praetorians or Platorians? Praetorians were made in distinction by their plumes. He's a Tribune. Is there no case where we could do blue? Well, I mean, we're not going historically accurate, but it would be nice if we kind of, held some sort of, people looking at it not getting pissed off. I just love the blue, and I don't have anywhere else where we could really do blue on him, and I think the plume would look good, but I get that red might be the way, right? On the box, like I said, on the box, I feel like he's like yellow. Yeah, it is. It's yellow. Right? It's yellows, like blonde hair on the box. And then he has a red stripe on his robe that we still have to do. That goes on the hem of the robe down low and on the stripe here. So we're going to do that red stripe. Right? I don't know. I historically, I have no idea. I didn't do my homework on this guy. So it says, politics and the spectacle of the arena have long been betrothed and were bedfellows well before the inception of the great Ludus Magnus. Newest stars and styles from foreign lands have proven fashionable seasoning for the traditional circus fair in recent decades, leading to a vigorous resurgence in popularity for the arenas. With popularity comes political clout for those who take to the sands. The recently created office of Tribunus Arenarum or Tribune of the Sands was an effort by the powers in the Republic both to curry favor with the gladiators and check their influence at the same time. While the new tribunal office ensures that gladiators have their own distinct voice in the Republic, it also allows them more easily be outvoted by more moderate or easily bribed voices. Eschewing his own name, Quintus Fabius Patricianus is the 15th gladiator elected to the office, personally responsible for the public corporal punishment and condemnation of those gladiators who transgress the professional strictures of Ludus Magnus. The Tribune most often faces the most skilled and dangerous opponents in the arena, those who are arrogant or desperate enough to flout justice in the arena by right of arms. So it's a pretty high office, huh? I feel like that's a pretty high office, so I feel like we should probably stick with whatever colors. Anybody? Anybody? The richer the color, the more expensive back in the day. Purple was the most. Yeah, snipe in some cultures, right? I want blue, dude. Like, I really want a blue plume. Can we do a blue plume? Can that be a thing? Can I do purple? Can we hedge our bets and do purple like someone was saying? Purple would be cool too. The problem with the blonde, right, is that our bronze, right, our non-metallic is already in the world of yellow. So from a color standpoint, it makes no sense. I feel like blue would give us the most pop, but at the same time, you know, if it's hokey, I don't know that I care. Red, don't want to do red because we still got to drop red freehand on the cloak, right? We got to do red edging on the cloak. So I don't want to do red because then it'll become too homogeneous with the red that we did down below, right? So I'm feeling blue. Deep royal blue. Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, I think so. I think blue. Blue will do it because we need something that pulls it out. The base is not going to be able to do it. We can't put a lot of color on the base because the base is, guess what? Sand. Right? So the sand base, the way we're doing it, already kind of falls into our same color scheme with our golds, which it would, so that's not a problem. I don't mind that. But I think we need blue. So we're going to go blue. We're going to go really, really deep blues. All right? So I'm going to start with whatever this is. No, that's purple. So I'm not going to start with that. Oh, we could start with that. We could start with a deep purple as a base. Why not? Why not? I feel like deep purple works. Let's do that. We'll do deep purple, and then we'll do whatever this is. Dark sky. My favorite blue, dark sky, over deep purple. So we'll go with a purple base, and then we'll throw some blue over that. That'll give us a really, really dark, rich undergrowth. Undertone. Undergrowth. It'll give us weeds, man. Again, we're going to run this so thin that the purple isn't going to be super hype. Awesome, wow, purple. Don't sweat it. Okay. We're going to start here. Very, very thin, just tinting the black. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So good. Yep. That's going to do it, my friends. Holy hell, I can already tell. Just the way the purple glow happens on there. Yeah, blue. Right choice. Thank you for getting me over my phobia of messing up what Arena Rex might think. Somebody comes in and says, hey, you know, those guys only had red plumes. We'll be like, nope, this guy didn't. Not, what did I tell you this guy's name was? I forget. I've already forgotten. That was a lot of words I read just a minute ago. I do love so much that the guys at Red Republic have taken the time to give us characters. Each one of the people you field on the battle or in the arena is a character, right? Is something that has a story, someone who has a story, and not just a trooper. You don't, in Arena Rex, you don't just buy squads. You know, you don't just buy soldiers. You know, you buy dudes who have a name and a personality, and it's reflected in their play style. You know, my big dude in the Ludus Magnus, Mycon, right? He's what did he see? Worked in like rock quarries as a slave or something like that, and grew big and muscled, and he could break rocks with his bare hands. And they found that the arena paid more or paid better, and he enjoyed it. You know, so you get this big dude who the way his play style is he just pushes dudes around the arena. You know, he doesn't necessarily do a lot of damage, but he freaking annihilates. He moves you so far and throws you into pits and stuff. He's just a big dude. So I love that they gave him a story, like why he's just this big dude. He's not just, You know, you didn't just buy a big model and as faceless big dude. You know, it's not Tank. It's Micon, and Micon has a history, and Micon plays the way his history dictates, and it's awesome. I love it. Now, if I had to have 40 models that were all individuals, I'd probably not like it as much. But the fact that I can play with 3, I can remember 3 names. Even at my age, I can remember like 3 names. Blue Sand, say what? Critover, what's going on, man? Nice. I'm glad you like them. Those are the best metal colors out there. Critover had me special order some of the Vallejo Metallic. It's just the metal, what do they call them? They're sold as mediums, but they're not. They're literally metallic paints. They're still water-based metallics, but they are just super metallics. And so they come in a 40 ml bottle. So we special ordered some of them for them. They're awesome. Ray Silver says, finally purple. Well, don't worry, I'm going to put blue right over it, so don't get all excited. Ray says, now find a quick reason to paint lime green somewhere. You're fiending for it? No, this is not the Kenny channel. This is not the Kenny channel. It is not true science, as Kenny would have you believe, that purple and green are the world's most favorite colors. That's just not a thing, unless you're the Joker or the Riddler or, you know, some other bad dressing evil person. We gave him so much shit yesterday about it. I love it. So good. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He paints purple. It bled off on people like Reiner. Reiner paints purple and green all the time too. They love it. They're great colors, man. They work so well together that you can't argue, right? It's just they've made it to where the rest of the world can't paint with those colors. Right? It's like, I'm not allowed. If I paint purple and green, people laugh at me. They're like, what are you trying to do? You ain't Kenny, bro. Right? Going in with dark sky now over this. This is our first kind of free-for-all on this model. So if you guys are following along at home, you just got to work with what you got because we didn't pick these colors until just now. Right? So again, the blue over the purple gives us a really, really nice color. Use that purple as a way to bring shadows out, right? And so you don't wind up with just blue. You wind up with that purple tone in there that gives it kind of an iridescence, which is really, really nice. Easy to do, just base with the purple. You can do it with magenta if you're using a dark blue too. Cover the dark blue over the magenta, and you wind up with a nice kind of iridescence. You saw how that worked when we were using the inks on the Deep Wars fish and stuff. Right? Because we laid the magenta down first and then come back over it with blues and then come back over that with purples, and you know, the way you layer these transparent paints allows a lot of those colors to play really well with one another and give you some real cool, like oil slick looking iridescence. Not that we're looking for oil slick iridescence on this, but just something a little bit different. Notice how I'm not pushing the blue all the way down to the area where it hits the helmet part of the plume, right? I'm leaving that purple, and I'm just taking these brush strokes that follow the hairs of the plume and pulling blue out of that so that I leave some purple down at the root, so to speak, right? You can really tell 100%. But yeah, this is looking really good. Great, great, great. Glad you guys convinced me that blue was the way to go. And then again, on the top, just kind of loose strokes running side to side because that's how the texture goes up here, so that some of that purple will still poke through. Awesome. Now we'll go to Viking blue. Not that. That's not Viking blue. Where's Viking blue? Like, be Viking blue. That's crystal blue. Are you Viking blue? You're Viking blue. Viking blue. So far we have used whatever the hell the deep purple is from Vallejo game. Hang on. Is maybe... Oh, please. It is... Royal purple is the color. my bottle, the name is worn, the writing is worn off of it, so I can't tell. So we used royal purple, then we went to dark sky, and now we're going to go to Viking blue, which is much brighter, but again, we're going to go very, very thin. So we're not going to get it to show up very bright over this dark, dark purple and blue that we got building up here. Or your combined army is also purple and green, that's true. Oh, you guys. Oh, you guys with all your purple and green. I wonder if you took a bunch of people who had creative tendencies and you stick them in a room and you could go back and like watch their lives as they learned how to express their creativity through, whether it was through drawing, sketching, painting, you know, whatever it was, and see like what influenced their primary color choices. Why certain people have affinities for red, why certain people have affinity for blues and purples or greens and all of that. You know, it would be really, really interesting for me to see, you know, what was it that attracted you to these colors, you know, so that you use them the way that you do. Some people have broad palettes. Some people have narrow palettes, but do amazing things with narrow palettes. You know, it's just really, really crazy. That would be interesting. That's the way my brain works. I want to know why. I want to know, like, what's going on, all right? So there you go. So not super bright. I mean, realize with this Viking blue, it's super bright, right? And you can see it on there, but we're picking out individual hairs, and we're painting very, very thin at first so that it isn't going to just be, blue! And it will darken up even more as it dries since we're going on so thin. Just doing these short, kind of vertical strokes with the side of the tip of the brush so that it just picks up the high areas on the sculpt. Gets those hairs that are further towards the outside of the bunch, so to speak there. Gaps, I'm going to go ahead and get in there and get a little bit of blue on there too, so it's not just a big purple open area. And then again, just kind of work more brightness towards the tip and stop taking the brush in towards the root at some point. A little bit across the bottom. And here, I'm going to use the side of the brush, and I'm just going to kind of use like a light dry brush stroke, front to back, along the plume so that it picks up that texture of the side to side bundles of hair. That's and see, it left kind of a darker ridge in the middle because the sculpt is higher on the edges, and that's pretty cool. So rather than, you know, cut through the left and right side everywhere, there are clumps here. It looks like there's like 4 different clumps, so at the end and beginning of each clump, I'll go ahead and do the edges like this. 5 clumps maybe? It's like 5. Oh, maybe 6. Jesus. And then for the rest of them, I'm just going to run front to back to pick up that detail. Like I said, much like a dry brush stroke. Brighten up this side a little bit. Again, just kind of keeping my brush stroke towards the tip of the hairs now, not driving it down towards the root this time. Bingo. Bingo. Like it. Good choice. Good choice. And then let's pick one more blue. Let's go with this. No, let's go with this. What is this? Electric? Damn, troglodyte. troglodyte blue, because, you know, why not? Because it's there. I don't have any Vallejo blues up here. I think I have one. I think I have Vallejo blue. That's the only blue from Vallejo I have up here. Well, no, that's wrong. The purple I used was from Vallejo, if you consider that a blue. All right, and then one last pass. Don't want this blue to be as thin as what I've been painting with before, but still kinda. And here I just want to literally just kind of top point on some of these hairs. Doesn't have to be all of them. Just a little bit of pointing at the top. Not, again, I'm not highlighting each strand. I'm just going up at the very, very top. Like so. Sometimes you'll have to do a sideways stroke to grab the edge. Sometimes you can do a vertical stroke to grab the edge. Whatever you got to do. Just peek a little bit of it like that. The other side. Got to make sure, like I did, clean off most of the paint on your finger palette or whatever you use, so that as you touch the model with the brush, you don't get a big blob of paint running down into the in-between areas, because the wetter it gets, the more it'll act like a wash, right? So you see me rub my paintbrush on my finger all the time to get paint off, you know, which is silly, right? I just went to the palette and put paint on my brush. Why do I then go and wipe it all off? Well, it's because I paint so thin that if I were to go straight to this model with this bright blue, very, very wet, and the whole brush loaded with that wet, bright blue, then what's going to happen is as soon as I touch it, the bright blue is going to run into the crevices like a wash, and that's going to screw up all of our shading. So we don't want to do that. Front, grab those points, then just kind of randomly go through on the top here. There's points like everywhere. Just kind of stippling and using the side of my brush to pick up the sculpt detail there. Bingo. There you go. Plume. That easy. Pow. I like it. Blue. Good choice. Good choice. And it pulls the rest of the guys together, right? Because we've been using blue. Those same blues minus the purple. I didn't use the purple on the other guys. I just went from the dark sky or deep sky, whatever it was, to Viking blue. I didn't even use the bright blue on these. So it'll, again, it makes this look a little bit more regal. It's brighter, has brighter tips on it, cleaner, newer. These guys can be dull blue, but it still has blue, red, white, skin tones, bronzes. These guys look like they're part of the same army, right? So that was the goal. Don't make them so monotonous, you know. Change the tone of the skin a little bit from here to there, right? But bring it home with the same colors. I dig it. Very nice. Time's it. 4:48. Holy shit balls. How'd it get so late? From all the purple 30K, all the Emperor's Children. I painted a lot of freaking purple last year. That is right. You have reminded me. I did paint a lot of freaking purple last year. I got Fulgrim sitting on the bench here with Ferrus Manus as I'm finishing that whole deal up. I love it, Max. Max is like, we're not going for historical. We're going for what looks good. I'm with you, man. Rule of cool. All right, so I'm digging it. I feel like we've got good stuff going on here. I think with the limited time that we've got left, we got to do a giveaway for this guy. Not for this guy painted, but this guy unpainted, right? So we've got a model that is going to go home to somebody lucky today that you can paint by going back and watching the VODs if you want, or do your own color scheme, whatever you want to do. We've got one of these guys unbuilt to give away today to one lucky viewer. we will go ahead and use the booty raffle that's running for it. So just type !booty in chat. That way I don't have to change and make everybody sign up again. Sound good? So let's do that. I also want to go in before, with the limited time we got left, I want to go in and put some ivory. We're going to go and pop some of the bright spots on the armor real quick, because now I have a good feel for the white on the robe, the way it plays against the skin, and the white robe made the armor, the yellows, really take front and center on the armor. And so it looks a little more gold than, say, on Micah, or whatever this guy's name is. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and start adding. We hadn't done any of the pure ivory on the armor yet, so we're going to do that now. Again, this is model color ivory. My favorite highlight pretty much in the world. More so than white, at least. Because it just has a little bit of hue to it. It's not so neutral. It's a little bit of a warmer white. If you're using other colors, I know that in Army Painter that they have Drake Tooth is really good for the same kind of reason. It's not quite as bright. I forget what the other color is that I like from them. Good. Very close. Brain Matter Beige is the one. Brain Matter Beige is a great one. Again, it's a hair, well, maybe not. I wanted to say it's a hair darker than ivory. Brain Matter Beige might be spot on. So you can use Brain Matter Beige as well. If you've got Army Color, Mega Set, or something like that. I don't know if Brain Matter Beige is in there. I think it is. Right? And the goal here, remember, the littlest amount of paint makes the biggest difference when we're going this bright. So I just want to start by like popping a little bit of brightness right there on the neck piece, right? I'm just picking where I want this bright spot to hit. I'm not going to trim the whole collar. I just want to dump a little brightness right there in the middle and see how that saturation starts popping immediately. Right? And then I'm going to come and do the same thing on these little laurel leaves coming off there. Just a little bit, not much at all. See how that real bright pop starts bringing that off of there, and we're not talking a whole lot of paint at all. Like, we're barely putting any paint on the model. But it's so bright in contrast to everything else that's on here that it has such a big reaction. So notice how on this part of the shoulder piece that comes around, looping around the outside and down into the underarm, it gets brighter right here, right? Notice how it's bright right along this edge. So I'm gonna pick like the top edge of that because of its facing to the light. And again, I'm just gonna hit it and brighten up just that one spot. Right there, really drive it home. Bam. And that gives it that shine immediately. Just from a little dot of paint right there. Drives home the metallic that you're trying to sell. Get just a spot on the nipple. The nipples are very pronounced on this armor. A little bit of shine right there where that pokes out. And then I want it right here as the cleft in towards the sternum happens. I want to get a shine line right up through this section of the breastplate. So very, very easily just come in and kind of do a V kind of thing right there. See how that saturation happens and really starts selling that metallic? Very, very light, not too far into the yellow, right along that edge. Bam, with white. Then let it fall as it does, yellow into darkness, and then you've got this pop of brightness over here, right? So you just kind of are playing with it and making sure that you don't put too much brightness right next to it, right next to itself on the armor, right? So if there's one bright spot, that doesn't mean there has to be a bright spot right next to it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to drop down here and put my bright saturation glow on this ab muscle piece right here on that corner, like that, right below the nipple. And then again, just a little dot right here below that, like so. this spot right over here where this peck kind of protrudes. I'm going to put a little dot right there on the corner of that peck. And then where else? Maybe right here, just with a little bit of shine on this rib. A little bit of shine on that rib. So, push a little bit more brightness on this ab area. Again, very, very thin, not much paint on the brush. Right. Moving, I got a little bit of area here where it like flares out right by the hip, so I'm just going to do a little bit of brightness right down low. So, a little bit of shine down there, not too much. And then a little bit on the top of these clasps. These might have been leather, I don't know. We went ahead and painted them like they were metal clasps. So I'm going to hit just a little bit of glow on those. Again, I've got a little bit of glow with the yellow here under the arm, so I'm going to pop that out with a little bit of ivory right there. Grab just a little bit on this edge that runs between the clasps as well, like that. Grab this corner right here. Again, just one little dot of ivory. The smallest amount of paint makes the biggest difference. Remember that. Now on larger flat surfaces, like the top of this, I can go like right on the top here and do a bigger swath of ivory on like the front of this band, and then kind of bring that edge down too. Same thing on this wrist guard. Pop a shine line right through that cylinder, skip the shadow, put a little bit on the side of the wrist, and then drag it a little bit around the circumference of these wrist flares. Here. Bam. Right? And because you drag it into that shadow area a little bit, it drives home that metallic even more. You've got that shine that kind of reaches around the hard edges of the bracelet there. And the top of the shoulder on the outside edge, again, just get right there at the top, brighten that up, and bring it a little bit further down the edge there. Not all the way. I don't want to pull it like an edge highlight all the way down because I want that gap so that then it also helps me pitch this bright spot right down here. Right, so just a little bit over the shoulder, gap, bright. I already edged and highlighted this a little bit more with our yellows, so it's not like you lose brightness there altogether, just a little bit. Then right up here at the top, I'm gonna go ahead and force a little bit more brightness right at the top here, thicken out that ivory a bit. So it saturates for a little bit more of a gleam right at the top. Then that thin line that we just painted comes out of that, which is nice. I'm going to skip our shadow that's right there and start piling some ivory onto this big spot on the shoulder, back of the shoulder here, where we would have a lot of saturation because it's a big flat panel. So this is where all of our shine is going to happen. Right, so I start throwing quite a bit of ivory right in there along the top. See that saturation immediately, how it changes the entire space of metallic back there? Don't push any up underneath into your shadow, right? You want to actually have it be fairly hard edged right here underneath the shadow. And also don't push it down very far. You don't want to overtake all your yellow that you got hanging out there. You just want it to be that bright saturation reflection right up on top. That looks really good and still doesn't fight with that white. Our white is just dirty enough that we can stand to push our metallics up a little bit and they aren't fighting for eye space. All right, same thing. I'm gonna grab this corner on the helm here. Give myself a reflection area right there. Big saturation point right on the corner. To match the brightness here on the shoulder. And I also want to grab these doohickeys. Kind of right there. And a little bit smaller down below. Bam. Get these rivets that are on here. And then I want a little bit of shine in here, which is tough, so we're just going to have to wing it. I'm just going to want a little bit of shine streaking across from that darkness over into my yellow as it goes across like that. I'll pull it a little bit more back this way, build it up. So. Anything right up here. Just keeping it in line, right? If I've got a saturation point where light is really bright, it's hitting it, it's got a glow right here on the round spot on his helm, right in here, then it's going to also affect all of these things that are facing the same direction similarly. Depending on their facing, they may not shine in like a straight line off of this, but they'll all be kind of in the same vicinity. So here, I want to just do kind of a radial glow. I'm going to start right here at the plume and then just kind of work my way out thin as I go. And then again, back towards the front. Always pulling back towards where I want it brightest. Right, I want it brightest right in this little circle of space right in here. Sorry, I'm almost off camera. Right here is my saturation point. So I'm moving all my brush strokes back into that area. Right? And really drive it home with one last layer of just ivory right in the center. Like so. Bam, now look at the shine on all that metal. Totally changes it. It already looked good, now it's starting to really drive it home. Catch the edge of the brim of the helmet here. Visor. Top of the ear guard, thingamajigger, like these technical terms. Top there. I also want to get just a little bit of shine along the back edge. Really drives that dark. I like the darkness that builds up right here as we have these two lines coming across, the helmet coming up into it. I like that dark grittiness right there, so I'm going to kind of just pitch a little bit there and put a little bit more brightness where those two lines in the edge of the helmet, the net guard go. Here I want to grab each individual line and leave the darkness between them. Here I saturated the darkness in between them too, right? Let's grab the rivets on the cheek plate. I want to grab just a little bit of glow on the front of this guard and a little bit of glow on the point down here by the chin. That. And then a little bit again, I want to get a little bit of glow. I'm going to stipple this in. I'm just going to kind of poke my brush and I want to stipple in a little bit of radial glow right up here by the temple. Right, so just lightly poking the brush at it so I get a circular kind of pattern that saturates just right up there at the top of the temple. I don't want that to be brush strokes, so that's why I'm just poking it so I can get kind of a circular shine working there and drive it home that it's right here on this visor area, right here on the ear. All of this area right here is shining pretty bright. Get that like that. Bingo. 5:05. We got to quit. We got to quit and do some giveaway. Go watch Key. Give me just a sec. Let me finish this side, and then we'll call it a day. You guys got the idea. Go in with just a little bit of brightness right on the curve. That part of the crest. Right here on the outside front as well. With these rivets. A little bit of spot in there. Maybe a little dot of shine right up here in the middle. Because I'm not pulling it as a whole line, that dot of shine in the middle really, again, sells the metallic. If I pull this whole line, yeah, it looks cool, but by giving it just a brighter spot, it actually acts like light would reflect, right? So I'll just keep poking at it, give it a little bit more brightness right there in the center. Bam. All right, so now I go from bright to not so bright to bright again. And that's what sells that kind of metallic sheen as light kind of transfers across an edge. Looking good. I'll also give myself a shine spot on this arm guard right here that intrudes a little bit into our shadow. Gives us a reflective shine. Right here where my darkness starts to come back in as I go underneath, I just go with a little bit of saturation right across the arm guard there. Now it gives us that reflection line, right down into darkness on it. We can do the same thing on the wrist guard real quick while I'm thinking about it before we stop. This is the hard part, right? Because I just be like, we just do this all day. Again, give myself a reflection saturation right across here. That then drops into shadow as it dips around the wrist, and that's going to force me to pull this edge just a little bit further, like so. Yeah. There we go. That sells it. Bam. And there you go. Metallics. Cloak. Everything you need. Except we didn't paint anything on the weapon, but you guys figured out the weapon's like wood and then an axe head. So if anybody wants help as you've been doing the follow along to figure out what you need to do to really sell your axe as an axe and all that, we can work on it, or I can speak about it during our next stream. All right, but good stuff. I think that's it for him. I'll have a little bit of work to finish him up, but I think we've given everybody the tools to continue on and get stuff done. You notice how I look at this side of the helmet, right? Already looked good, shoulder and all of that, but then compare it to over here after we've done the ivory, right? Big difference. As you just get that little bit of shine and glare going on, just a little bit of paint goes a long way towards making the story come together, right? Over here, more of the yellow shows through. Over here, just that little bit of ivory forces the yellow down and out of that realm of being the focal point for your eye. The ivory starts to be the thing that the eye notices the most, right? So as we get the other side done, it'll pull it all together, especially on the face. Get some brightness and contrast laid in on the face. You can see the chest popping the way it does with the ivory as well. Good stuff. Good the stuffs. Got to give away a model. We're going to give away this guy. Let me go get the actual box so you guys can see I'm not lying. Hang on. As if I'd lie to you. Bam. Bam. Here's your boy. Wish Apple would stop trying to update like right at the end of all my streams. It always happens at the same time. I guess that's the way it's supposed to go, huh? So here you go. The Ludus Magnus Tribune, this same guy that we've been painting, right? We're going to give him away. So you don't get my painted model, but you get this one, which is a full resin model. Same model that we've been painting here. Comes with all the stuff you need to play him in game. It's got his stat card, it's got his history card, it's got his fatigue token, as well as all the bits you need. Nice resin kit. Good stuffs. So this is going home with somebody for hanging out with us. Sounds pretty good to me, huh? Sounds pretty good to me. Good model, man. I'm having so much fun with Arena Rex. I'm nerding out, man. I'm nerding out. Do something bright green. Bastages. Have I not done anything bright green in a long time? I guess my Dark Age stuff doesn't count, right? I mean, it's turquoise, right? We did a lot of turquoise. Like, I'm a fan of the turquoise stuff that we're doing on the Dark Age, right? Bust this guy out. Remember this guy? Haven't seen him in a while. He's almost done. Got to do a focus on Dark Age at some point.
Dirty, dirty little thing.
What the hell happened? How did we lose everybody? Did Twitch just die for everybody? Did Twitch just die? Because we lost everybody. Like, literally. We're still live. We haven't dropped a single frame. Twitch is screwing us. I don't want to do this giveaway if there's nobody here. Oh, Twitter, yeah, and said there were site-wide outages. That sucks, guys. Hey, for those of you that can still hear me, would it be better for us to do this giveaway on Friday? Because remember, I've got, in the raffle right now, I've got... I've got a lot more entries than people here right now, so that would suck. That would suck. I think we need to wait till Friday, guys. Yeah, Big Swede, Ray, I think we need to wait till Friday. I hate to do that to you guys, but I think we need to wait. I don't think it would be fair because a lot of people entered the raffle and they're not here. There's way more people entered in the raffle than are in the chat, and I don't want to do that to somebody. All right, so I'm going to do this. Kev Rob, it means less chance for you to win, you bastard. All right, let me do this. Let me say, for everybody that can just see me in chat, I'm going to wait on the giveaway until Friday due to the outages. Sorry, gang, but want to be fair to everyone. All right? Yeah, Chuck, I'm sorry about that. I wish there was a way that I could make it fair for the guys that can't be here on Friday. You know, even if maybe you could tune in real quick and just enter. Maybe what I'll do on Friday to make it up to people that were here today, if you could just find a way to tune into the chat and just enter the raffle on Friday maybe, then we could do it like towards the beginning of the show, and I won't require people to be there. You can just come in, put your name in, and I'll go ahead and draw, and if you get it, you win, maybe. Or we could do that. Well, no, I think we ought to do that, because a lot of people can't enter because of the Twitch thing going on, so. If it was for the painted model, it'd be a lot different. It's for an unpainted model, so it's not the end of the world. If I was giving away the painted one today, then I would understand people being bummed out. But we'll do it on Friday. And make sure that it's fair for everybody. I think that's the best thing. If you can just tune in on Friday, what I'll do is I'll make the caveat that for this giveaway, you don't have to be there. You just got to come enter into the raffle on Friday. If you got stuff going on Friday night, totally understand. Just jump in if you can, even on your phone. ! Booty on Friday. The winner will get the model regardless if they're here or not. How about that? That's a good balance for us. For those people that are here that aren't having problems, that still lets you do it. For those people that aren't and can't, then it'll allow them to get in on it. So, Drago, I'm not streaming tomorrow. I'm not. I might stream tomorrow and do video games, I guess, but probably not. My Thursday is kind of one where I plan on just if I stream, I stream. If not, then, no big deal. But even if I was to stream tomorrow, I wouldn't do the giveaway because people don't expect me to be on Thursdays. So, I'll do the giveaway Friday, and you don't have to be present. Just make sure to come in at the start of stream and enter. Keeps it fair. There we go. So I'm out. For everybody that can see me, thank you for hanging. Sorry Twitch had all these problems. Hope it didn't happen or I know people were having problems all day long. So we'll discuss a little bit more about what we did with the model on Friday for those people that weren't able to catch it or watch the VOD, obviously. But for everybody who's still here, thank you guys so much for hanging with us. Thank you so much for the support. Thanks for having a good one. Have a great evening. I'm going to get out of here and go join the Long War guys. Make sure to jump by YouTube on the Long War and check out what they got going on tonight. I'll hop into that podcast for probably a little bit. And we will see you back on Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you guys so much. Love your faces. Take it easy.